Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto trained in Fox Mountain. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Taco and Sombrero, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Prologue. Anahagakure no Sato, one of the 5 great ninja villages, known for its military power and its influence on the shinobi world itself. The great tree that, no matter what, stands tall. It has participated in every great shinobi war and emerged victorious. It is the home of renowned heroes. Legends who have made a name for themselves, drenching the soil with blood and striking fear in the hearts of their enemies. Hidden in a deep forest, it lays just below the gaze of its past guardians, now carved in stone. But even now, as the ages pass by, they keep up their job of protecting the village, the same village that saw them born. Although the past of Konoha is bathed in glory, not everything is perfect. Any great garden, no matter how beautiful, well kept or renowned, will eventually grow weeds. Weeds which must be cut to protect the true plants, preserving the sanctity of the community. In the village hidden in the leaves, the weeds are traitors, and as in any other ninja village, they need to be taken care of one way or another. After the Third Great Shinobi War, forgetting about its inner conflicts, the Leaf had lived a prosperous and peaceful life. Until the unthinkable happened. 7 years ago, Konoha was attacked, not by an enemy village, but by a demon. A giant fox, the Kikbi no Kitsune, rampaged into the village. Unstoppable as a tornado and lethal as a plague was the fox's assault, shinobi falling in numbers only equaled by the leaves, withered in the surrounding forests as summer faded. On that cold fall night, cries for help and shrieks of agony could not be drowned out, and all over the village children cried, adding their screams to the terrible echoing cacophony. It was a tragedy, a catastrophe, a disaster of nature, and, for the first time since it sprouted in the land of fire, the tree seemed doomed. But then, in a flash of yellow, the fourth fire shadow made his way to the battlefield, resolved to stop the demon or die trying. A shinobi of incredible power and skill, Minato Namikaze succeeded in beating the demon fox and sealed it inside a newborn baby, at the cost of his life. Now, 7 years later, the wound inflicted by the Biju is no longer bleeding, but it isn't closed and probably never will be. At nightfall, Konoha will take a rest of mourning for its fallen ones. This is an evening to celebrate the victory over the fox that threatened the leaf. It is a time to celebrate the bravery of the lost heroes and their will of fire. Tonight is the 10th of October, and the leaves are dancing. Haim, where are you? A frantic man called, running through the mass of people congregated at the street, bumping along the way several men and women. The man had sandy blonde hair, tied in a long ponytail reaching to his upper back. He wore blue trousers with tape wrapped at the bottoms and a long-sleeved blue shirt below a Konoha jounin vest. On the top of the vest there was a sleeveless red coat and, completing the outfit, he wore hand guards on both arms and the Konoha Hitai on his forehead. Damn it, Inoichi. How could you lose sight of your own daughter, he thought, fruitlessly searching for his daughter inside a ramen shop. I need to find her soon, or Mei will hang me on the village gates by my balls. Ugh, how did I get myself into this mess? Inoichi Yamanaka, head of the Yamanaka clan, was visiting the annual Yondaime festival and having fun with his daughter Ino, but then, in the blink of an eye, she just disappeared. He knew he should have taken his daughter's hand, but she had utterly refused, saying she was a big girl now. And here he was, running through the town searching for his little princess who must be on the streets cold, hungry and frightened. If someone even tries to harm my baby girl, I promise there's going to be hell to pay. The blonde-haired shinobi rounded the corner and entered an alley, hoping to find his daughter without any kind of injury. Inoichi went deeper into the dark alley. His instinct, refined by years as a shinobi, told him that something very wrong had happened there. Soon, every step he took was accompanied by the cracking of little pieces of broken glass on the floor. Occasionally, his vision would wander to a trash can, broken window or graffiti that caught his eye. Every muscle on his body was tensed and ready to spring to action should something or someone jump to attack him. His senses, sharpened, tried to catch any sign of a trap. Then a somewhat strange but familiar smell came to his nose. The smell, is it iron? No, it is more like blood. Inoichi's heart rose to his throat and a chilly wind crept up his spine. Blood. Something that every shinobi must be familiar with, after all, their job often consists in killing the appointed target, but that didn't mean that he had to like it. For many shinobi, the smell or sight of blood often reminds them of everything they have lost, of all the comrades they have seen as the light fades from their eyes, and the sickly reminder that the blood stays warm, even after the bodies have turned cold. Inoichi ran forward, following the smell. On the floor he saw a figure, lying there with its blonde hair tainted by red. The Yamanaka froze and stood there, slightly trembling, thinking the body was from his blonde daughter. On closer inspection, however, he observed that the hair had a different shade when compared to Ino's platinum color. The Junin took a step forward and crouched next to the body to get a better look. The body was of a child no more than 10 years old. Inoichi turned the body from its face-down position to see the face. The child's bruised visage had blanched because of the loss of blood and had 3 whisker marks on each cheek with whiskers. The Jinchuriki the Jounin immediately checked his pulse and was surprised. Although weak, the boy was still alive. There was no time to lose, he needed to take the boy to the hospital. Such deep wounds could only be healed by professionals or the boy wouldn't make it. I can't believe it. Where the hell are the Anbu when you need them? Inoichi took the boy in his arms and cringed from the gruesome sight. The Jinchuriki's shredded t-shirt lay forgotten on the wet floor, revealing the deep stab wounds and cuts on his chest. One particularly nasty gash ran from his left shoulder all the way to his stomach. The legs weren't much better, and Inoichi deducted from the burnt pants and legs that someone had used a fire jutsu against him. The Yamanaka could continue inspecting the numerous wounds and scars on the boy, but he had to get moving. Using chakra, he began running up the wall, and once on top of the building, the Junin took off, jumping from roof to roof. How could someone do this? Thought Inoichi while jumping to the next roof. Using a jutsu against a defenseless child, I never thought a ninja would sink so low. Almost there, hang on, Naruto. Said Inoichi, although he knew he wouldn't get a response from the grievously injured child. The blonde shinobi was jumping as fast and far as he could, hoping to get to the hospital sooner. He didn't want the boy to die. He just couldn't understand how people could be so stupid. Jinchuriki or not, he's just a little kid who hasn't done any harm to anyone. He had heard rumors about mobs attacking Naruto, but he hadn't thought it could that bad, and it had taken the young boy slowly bleeding to death in his arms for him to realize the truth. You didn't even choose to become a Jinchuriki, you were made one. Said the clan head while looking down to Naruto. Why did Minato pick you, kid? All the people who were 15 years old or older by the date of October the 10th knew that the Kikbi had been sealed inside Naruto. That information was released to the public by the Sandaime Hokage shortly after the attack ended. The Sandaime had hoped that the people would understand and respect the deceased Yondaime's wish of seeing Naruto as a hero. Too bad the aged Sandaime forgot something really important about life. Human ignorance knows no limit. Shouts of indignation and pure hate didn't take long to flood the village. People, mainly the civilians, were calling for the death of the beast that had destroyed their homes and killed their loved ones. All the hate from the aftermath of the Kikbi's assault was focused to the newborn Jinchuriki. The Sandaime saw his mistake and created a law stating that anyone who dared to speak about Naruto's condition to any of the younger generation would be executed on the spot. But it was too late. Although we, the clan heads, treat Naruto like any other kids, the sons and daughters of civilians, after seeing how their parents deal with Uzumaki, started giving him the same cold attitude, and in the end, he ended up all alone treated like a pariah. I should have encouraged Ino to play with him as he neared the hospital. Inoichi's eyes moved to the Hokage monument and stopped at the face of Minato Namikaze. The hell? Inoichi Yamanaka came to a halt and looked down, or, more precisely, down to Naruto's face. No, it can't be. Minato wouldn't have left a random kid with such a burden, much less someone as lonely as an orphan. He wouldn't be able to ask a family to sacrifice their sons or daughters, then, who? But, Kushina was pregnant. Minato and Kushina were very close to each other. His eyes widened like saucers, and he almost dropped Naruto because of the shock that came with his inevitable conclusion. Minato Namikaze not only sacrificed himself for the village. Inoichi now truly knew who he was carrying in his arms. He may be the container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He had to sacrifice something more precious to him than his own life, but he is also the Fourth's legacy. He sacrificed his own son. Namikaze Naruto. Oh shit. Chapter 2. Tears bathed in moonlight. Sarutobi Hiruzen, dressed in the usual Hokage robe and hat, stood in front of his window, overlooking the village. A gentle breeze caressed his aged face, and the sound of the music, along with the laughter of the children playing below, allowed the old Hokage to relax. He had just heard some very disturbing news about the safety of a child he had come to care as a surrogate grandson. Half an hour ago, Naruto Uzumaki had been checked into Konoha's General Hospital barely alive and with several injuries adorning his skinny body, in the arms of an irate Inoichi Yamanaka. Apparently Inoichi had stormed through the hospital's gates and demanded immediate treatment for the blonde boy or he would turn all the hospital staff stupid. The aged Fire Shadow sighed. This wasn't the first time that the boy had been attacked. The villagers would often chase him around, but the sly kid was able to escape most of the time, and if not, the Anbu would come and rescue the boy. But on this date the things were always different. The villagers used this day to let loose all of the anger that they had bottled in throughout the year. They would stop at nothing to harm the poor boy, and, because of the festival and the masses of people that crowded the streets, the Anbu had a hard time patrolling the village. Once they knew what was going on, it was always too late to do anything to help the young Jinchuriki, except by taking him to the hospital. Once more the Hokage sighed, this time while pinching the bridge of his nose. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to help the boy, but he couldn't be there for him all of the time. He had tried to explain Naruto's condition to the civilians, but it was a lost cause. They had been already swayed by the words of his charismatic rival Konoha's warhawk Danzo Shimura. Danzo Sarutobi grumbled. Although he knew that all that the Konoha elder did was for the good of the leaf, he just couldn't accept his methods. 7 years ago, right after the sealing took place, Danzo approached Sarutobi and tried to convince the reinstated Hokage to let him train the boy. He had said that he could make him a great asset for the village, a tool that would kill and die for the sake of the great tree. Of course, Hiruzen refused. He knew the way Danzo trained his shinobi, and he would be damned if he let him put one hand on the blonde boy. Needless to say, the old warhawk didn't take the rejection well. The bandaged man was a very influential man and held in high regard by both the Konoha Council and the civilians, so it wasn't difficult to convince the already spiteful villagers to continue to harass the young Jinchuriki. Sarutobi knew why. Danzo wanted to make him regret his decision, but he wouldn't budge. If he did, Naruto would become another mindless root soldier. Averting his eyes from the village, the Sandaime focused on the night's full moon and starry sky. "I'm sorry, Minato," he thought. "I don't think I can protect Naruto from Danzo much longer, if on." Thump, thump, thump. A third fire shadow was pulled from his thoughts by a loud knocking on his office door. "Enter," commanded Hiruzen, not turning around. The door opened and closed, indicating the entry of another presence. "Good evening," Hokage-sama greeted the new addition to the room. Sarutobi knew the person who greeted him, even before hearing his voice. He had been sure that he would come here to confront him after the evening's events. The Hokage turned around to return the greeting. "Good evening, Inoichi. What brings you here this late at night?" The old man knew that the blonde Junin would want to talk ever since he heard the news about Naruto. So he had stayed in his office, waiting for the Yamanaka to arrive. "Hokage-sama, can we talk for a bit?" The Sandaime just nodded and sat on his chair, indicating that Inoichi should do the same. Inoichi sat down and for a moment they just stared at each other, the large desk being the only thing which separated them in the dark room, illuminated by the moonlight coming from the window. The Junin coughed a couple of times before starting. "As you probably know already, Hokage-sama, earlier I took an injured, no, maimed would better describe it, Naruto to the hospital. I had heard rumors before, but I never thought someone would actually hurt a 7-year-old boy as much as he was today. How could this happen, Hokage-sama?" The aged Hokage took out his pipe, put tobacco in it, then lit it and took a puff. Once the smoke that he released vanished from the room, he began to talk. "Firstly, I want to thank you for helping young Naruto. You will receive a B-rank mission payment for the trouble. Sarutobi-sama, with all due respect, if you wish to thank me, then do it by answering my questions rather than with money." The Junin replied. Taking a drag from his pipe, the smoker sighed. "Very well, Inoichi-san. I will allow you to ask me 4 questions, to which I will reply if I know the answer. Answering your first question, this has actually happened before. Normally, Naruto would be smart enough to not let them catch him, but every year, during the Yondaime's festival, the mobs always manage to find him and beat him within an inch of his life. Why do you allow this to go unpunished, Hokage-sama?" said Inoichi, slamming his hands on the table as he stood up. "I do not allow this to go unpunished, Inoichi. I make sure they are punished just as the law dictates," exclaimed the Hokage, also standing. The blonde mind walker flinched at hearing the god of shinobi raise his voice, but he refused to back down, "Not for this. That's a lie, and you know it. I work in the Konoha torture and interrogation force, and I have seen these so-called mobsters enter and leave only 10 minutes later, perfectly fine," countered the blonde loudly. The Hokage stayed quiet, sitting down. Inoichi was shaken from his frenzy and immediately bowed to his leader. "Hokage-sama, I'm really sorry, I don't know what came over me," apologized the Junin. "What's wrong with me? Did I really raise my voice against the professor, the god of shinobi himself? Ugh, I hope they have comfy beds in jail." Luckily for Inoichi, the Sandaime only laughed. "Don't worry about it, getting so worked up only shows that you really care about what's happening." The professor turned serious. "I will personally investigate this issue, although I think I already know who is responsible for letting the mobsters to go unpunished." "Who is he, Sandaime-sama?" asked the Yamanaka. Sarutobi took a long drag from his pipe before exhaling, making little smoke rings in the air. He looked at Inoichi and then sucked on his pipe again. Finally he took it from his lips and opened his mouth to speakingly to put the pipe in again and take another puff. Inoichi's right eyebrow twitched. "Come on, you old smoker monkey. Talk already," thought the irritated blonde Junin. At long last, the Sandaime cleaned the ashes from his pipe and put it in his pocket. "Danzo Shimura," he said bitterly. Seeing Inoichi's confused face, he decided to elaborate. "For years now, Danzo has been plotting against me, waiting for a chance to usurp the Hokage's title. 7 years ago he saw a chance, in the form of the newborn Naruto Uzumaki. He tried to convince me to give him the baby so he could be trained, a tool that would kill and die for the sake of the great tree were his exact words. What he really wanted was a domesticated Jinchuriki at his beck and call, so he could use that power against me. I denied his request and ordered him to disband his root immediately. The fire shadow took a deep breath before continuing. Danzo, being the stubborn man that he is, didn't heed my warning and still has his root working. Lamentably, they don't leave any trace or clue, so we have no proof of its existence, but we are getting sidetracked. That fool of a man wants me to regret my decision, that's why I suspect he has been helping Naruto's attackers in order to gain their respect and also so they can resume their assaults on the boy. I see if Danzo's root is still running amok, it would be very probable that he slipped some of his agents into the T&I force. The Junin said grimly, his arms crossed over his chest. Indeed. Now, ask your fourth question, it has been a long day and I need my rest. The Mind Walker nodded, he didn't need to think twice about what his last query would be. Is Naruto the son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze? Sarutobi's eyes widened in shock and his mouth almost touched the desk. Of all the questions he could be asked, that was the only one that he didn't want to answer. Hiruzen didn't want to lie to his shinobi, so he just lowered his head and stayed quiet. Inoichi studied the Hokage's expression finding his answer in the silence that the Sandaime gave him. So it is true. But why does Naruto not know about this? Inoichi, I am afraid you have already asked your 4 questions, replied the Hokage with his head still lowered, his hat hiding his face. The Junin was about to argue, but then saw something he thought he would never see. Sarutobi's shoulders were trembling slightly, and although his hat hid most of his face, the moonlight revealed the shining tears going down his wrinkled cheeks and drenching his goatee. I'm an old man, Inoichi. I've lived through 2 of the 3 great ninja wars, I've seen friends and enemies alike die in the battlefield, I've killed so many people that I'm sure I already have a place reserved for me in hell. But for a reason it pains me to see that bright smile that boy always has on his face. I admire that kid, I want to be like him. He never gives up, he is alone in the world, but he doesn't stop smiling no matter what, but I know that it won't last forever. Hiruzen put a hand over his eyes and resumed talking in a cracking voice. I'm afraid. I don't want to see that smile of his break, every day that passes it looks like he has to force himself more to try and look happy. It hurts me to see him forcing himself and Ikai kills me to know that I can't use shit to help him. The god of shinobi finally lost a war, years of pent-up emotions came over him and he couldn't stop the flow of tears. What's the point of being called powerful if I can't protect a single child? Whispered the old Hokage, sobbing uncontrollably. Inoichi understood what the cage meant. When I was in the alley and mistook Naruto's body for Ino's, I felt useless, powerless. This only proves that even the strongest people have their moments of weaknesses. Sarutobi recomposed himself and said, I want to protect Naruto, that's exactly why I don't tell him about his heritage. If Iwagakure knows that the man that they curse every day had a son, they wouldn't hesitate to send assassins to kill the boy as some kind of payback. Be that as it may, you should still tell Naruto about his parents. When the time comes I will, but for the meantime he has suffered enough. Yes, he has suffered enough. That is why he deserves to know. If the people know that he is the son of the Yondaime then he would be treated with more respect. Why can't you understand that I don't want to endanger the boy? He is not ready if he is attacked by a shinobi, then he would surely die. He is already being attacked by shinobi in here, in his own village. What? Is that true? Inoichi nodded. When I found him, he had his legs burnt, I think it was because of the fire jutsu Hokage-sama. The Sandaime gripped his hands in rage and said through clenched teeth. How can a ninja fall so low? I ask myself the same question, sir, but never mind that. I won't insist anymore on telling the boy about his heritage. I understand that you wish to protect the boy, but also the village. Hiruzen nodded sadly, Inoichi was right on the spot, yes he wanted to protect the child, but he was the Hokage, and he couldn't neglect his people. Let me train Naruto, Lord Hokage. This was the second time that someone had requested that. 7 years ago he denied this request to Danzo, but this time it was different. Inoichi didn't want to make Naruto into a tool. He wanted to help him, just like himself. The Hokage stayed quiet, still thinking about what he should do. I promise you that if he becomes my disciple, he will have food to eat and a house to call home. I want to train him so one day you can tell him about his parents without fearing for his life, but don't worry I will also teach him about everything he needs know. I want to grow him into a great man, just like his father was. So this is what all is about, said the fire shadow while narrowing his eyes. You only want to help him because of his father. I assisted him before even knowing about his parentage, Hokage-sama. The blonde man exclaimed, feeling insulted by what the Hokage insinuated. I don't want to see what happened today repeat itself. That's why if you really care about the boy you will let me teach him. The gray-haired man stared at Inoichi trying to find out if he was lying, but couldn't find deception in the man. He came to a decision, maybe he couldn't protect the boy any longer, but someone else could. Alright Inoichi, I will allow you to make him your pupil, but only if he wants to. Tomorrow we will go to the hospital and ask him, is that alright with you? Yes, Hokage-sama replied the Jinin. Then you're dismissed. Inoichi Yamanka stood up from his chair and bowed to the Sandame before turning around and walking towards the door. Just when the blonde man was about to turn the knob, he heard his leader's voice again. Inoichi, I am sure Naruto will accept your proposal. That's why I ask you, not as a Hokage, but as a grandfather, that you take good care of him. Sarutobi, once again looking at the moon, said. Yamanaka smiled and replied. I promise that I will take good care of him, Sarutobi-sama. And with that the door closed, leaving the aged Kage alone with his thoughts. The night was at its peak, the festival had for the most part already died, and the once crowded streets were now totally empty, with the exception of one soul. Inoichi Yamanaka was finally ready to go home to his beloved wife and daughter. Today had been a hectic day for him, but in the end everything worked up just fine. Tomorrow when I go see Naruto maybe I will take Ino with me, God knows that boy could use a friend. The blonde Jinin now could see his flower shop, but suddenly he had the urgent need to grab his balls. My ninja senses are telling me something very bad is going to happen. Inoichi shrugged and kept on walking until he reached his home. Honey, I'm home. He called out, hoping to see his beautiful wife come and greet him. He got what he wanted. From one of the many doors of the hallway came out his wife wearing a simple white robe over her purple satin nightgown. Her long platinum blonde hair was tied up in tight bun on top of her head, with only one thin bang, framing her delicate smiling face. Mayu Yamanaka marched towards her beloved husband, and when she got close enough started talking. Hello dear, where were you? Oh my dear Mayu, it is so good to be back home, you won't imagine how crazy my day was. Inoichi pulled her wife into a hug and kissed her forehead. Poor husband, you must have it pretty rough. Say, you wouldn't know where Ino is, do you? Realization hit Inoichi hard and slowly he withdrew himself from the hug he was sharing with his wife. Of course you wouldn't know. Imagine my surprise when our 7-year-old daughter walked into the house alone and crying after walking through a sea of people at night. Mayu started closing to her backing husband, still sporting that devilish smile on her face. Wait, Mayu, I can explain. The retreating Inoichi said, until he cornered himself. There's nothing to explain, you were probably drinking again in some bar with Shikaku Chimza, weren't you? Trying to save his skin the Jinin replied. And no, I wasn't. I saved a life, I'm a hero. Mayu only laughed. Silly husband, you and your beer-induced fantasies. Then the platinum blonde revealed her weapon, the legendary husband beater the frying pan. Inoichi paled at seeing his bane and tried to make a run to the front door, but it was already too late for the Jinin. Through the night the sound of metal hitting flesh resounded and anyone that heard it knew what it meant, a husband was being punished for his stupidity. In a big stone hall, a bandaged old man was currently seated behind a desk reading some documents. He had shaggy black hair and a cross-shaped scar was visible on his face. Talk. The bandaged man said to apparently no one, but then a masked man garbed in black appeared kneeled in front of the sitting oldster. Danzo-sama, I have some information you should be aware of. It seems that someone has showed interest in training Naruto Uzumaki. Danzo frowned but gestured the man to continue with his hand. That man is the Yamanaka clan head, Inoichi Yamanaka, and it looks like the Hokage has granted him permission to teach the boy. How should we act upon this, sir? The black-haired man rested both of his elbows on the table and interlaced his fingers in front of his face. We must act immediately. We cannot allow Yamanaka to take the Uzumaki boy from us, he is needed in my plans if I wish to succeed. Tomorrow we will meet with Yamanaka and convince him to withdraw his request to teach the boy by any means necessary. Force included. And with that said the clock needles reached the number 12, indicating the end of October the 10th and the start of a day where the destiny of a child was going to be written. Chapter 3. What you deserve. I hate hospitals, one Naruto Uzumaki though while staring at the white ceiling of the room. Moments ago the blonde-haired boy was sleeping peacefully and had intended to keep doing that, but the sun decided otherwise. Through the curtains the sunshine greeted the blonde by hitting him right on his face, stirring him from his long slumber. Attempting to remain in Morpheus's kingdom as much as possible, the young Jinchuriki hid under the sheets of his bed, but his efforts were useless, he had returned to his lonely reality. Sitting up from his current position, Naruto roamed his eyes over the pure white room until they locked on a vase with a couple of flowers on top the night table. A question raised in his mind. Was Jiji here? Naruto sighed and threw the sheets covering him onto the floor, revealing his body covered in injuries, gauzes and a hospital robe. I was too slow, they really did a number on me this time. Thought the blonde while examining his hurt body, running his slender fingers through the bandages until he came in contact with his legs. Then he froze, the memories from yesterday surfacing. I shouldn't have gone to Ichiraku. I knew what day it was yesterday, I should have just stayed in the apartment like Jiji said, but the stupid tummy monster wanted to eat. The Uzumaki now had his legs pulled to his chest and his arms wrapped around them. He could still feel the vicious fire eating away the skin of his legs. He could only watch. Any kind of resistance was in vain as the three men kicked, stomped and pummeled him. Panic engulfed him along with the flames. He screamed as loud as he could, hoping someone, God included, to take pity on him. But his pleas of help were drowned by the music and the joyous laughs that came from the festival. He screamed until his throat was dry and hoarse, and finally some kind of divine entity heard his miserable pleas and sweet unconsciousness washed over him. And now he was here, in the Konoha hospital with almost every inch of his body covered in bandages. Naruto steeled himself and began to remove the gauzes covering his legs. He remembered seeing them turn charcoal black, while wishing for them to become ashes, so the pain would stop. So now, because of the morbid curiosity a boy as tormented as Naruto could have, he chose to see what was left of his lower extremities. To the boy's surprise and relief, his legs were mostly healed by now. He was a fast healer. That was something he was proud of, because no matter how ugly his wounds were, they usually healed in a matter of a few hours. Normally any person that came to a hospital because of an injury would attribute their healing to a treatment or doctor, but the blonde boy knew otherwise. Every time he ended up here, the staff were hesitant to help him and gave him only enough attention to keep him alive. After he regained some of his health back, he would be immediately thrown out. Not that he cared, after all Naruto always wanted to stay as little as possible confined in a clinic or a hospital. Those places just straight out depressed him. If an already depressed person enters a depressing hospital full of depressed people, then he or she would just feel more depressed, right? Thought Naruto. Suddenly the door to the room opened and Naruto perked up. Hey Jiji, did you came to see me? Here's in Sarutobi laughed. Yes, Naruto-kun, I did come to see you, said the Hokage, emphasizing the word to correct the 7-year-old kid. So, how are you feeling today, Naruto-kun? I'm feeling great Jiji. Can't wait to get out of here and go to Ichiraku. That's good to know, my boy, but I'm afraid you'll have to stay here for a while until we are sure you are completely healed. What? No way, I'm already completely healed. Right after saying that, he pushed both of his arms into the air and as a result of his imprudent actions, he cringed from the pain he felt. The Hokage rushed to his side to see if he was okay, but the blonde only shrugged it off and smiled. I'm fine Gramps, this is nothing, exclaimed the young boy. The old Kage sighed. He knew Naruto was acting tough because he didn't want to worry him. Just be more careful Naruto, after all you are still healing. Okay old man. Hiruzen only laughed and ruffled the boy's blonde hair. Hey, stop doing that already. You can order me around as much as you want when you become Hokage, Naruto-kun. Fine, just you wait Jiji. Someday I will become Hokage and make you stop ruffling my hair. Believe it. Naruto said with his usual enthusiasm. Even if someday you really become Hokage, I don't think I will stop it, my boy. Then the Hokage's face turned from a playful one to a serious one. It was time to deal with the matter at hand. Naruto, I would like you to meet the person that helped you yesterday. Naruto's face took a look of puzzlement. I thought it was you who bring me here. It is brought, Naruto-kun, and no, I wasn't the one who brought you here yesterday. The man who helped you is outside waiting for a chance to talk with you. Would you like to see him? Naruto nodded absent-minded, still thinking about who might have saved him from the bad guys. Was it the old man from the ramen stand? Maybe it was Aim-chan. No, Jiji said it was a he, so he must be a boy. The young blonde was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't realize that someone had already entered the room and was standing next to his bed. Naruto-kun. The Hokage's voice brought him back to attention and saw a man standing next to him. The man had blonde hair a different shade than his own, which was tied in a long ponytail that reached to his upper back. He was wearing blue trousers with tape wrapped at the bottoms. His upper body consisted of a long-sleeved blue shirt below a Konoha vest. On top of the vest there was a sleeveless red coat. Completing the outfit he wore handguards on both arms and the Konoha hit I-8 on his forehead. Hello Naruto-san, it is good to see that you are doing well. My name is Inoichi Yamanaka and I would like to have a few words with you if you don't mind. The blonde man said. Sarutobi smirked, he was sure Naruto would come out with a funny name to call Inoichi. Come on Naruto-kun, do your worst. It is nice to meet you. Also thanks for saving me, Yamanaka-san. Finished Naruto with a slight bow. So it is Yamanaka-san. Wait, what? Naruto-kun, did you just call him Yamanaka-san? Yes. Why? Did I say it wrong? Naruto asked, his head cocked to the right in confusion. No you didn't, but why do I, the freaking Hokage, get called Jiji while he, Amirjmin is called by his name? Sarutobi pointed at Inoichi, while said man just raised one of his eyebrows. Well you are Jiji after all Jiji said Naruto with a foxy smile. That doesn't make any sense. Of all of the ways you could have named Inoichi, you call him Yamanaka-san, you could have called him Blondie, unmanly man, or even sissy guy. By now Inoichi's right eyebrow was twitching, a tick mark formed on his forehead and he was glaring heatedly at his leader. Don't be silly Jai, why would I call him that? Sarutobi slumped and gave up. Once the boy decided on something, there was no point in trying to change his mind. Also, Inoichi's glare was starting to hurt him. The Jinin coughed a couple of times to regain his composure and addressed the little boy. "You are very welcome, Naruto-san. Now it is time to get serious." Inoichi grabbed a chair and dragged it to the side of the bed before sitting down so he could look at the boy in the eyes. "I have a proposal for you. Naruto Uzumaki, would you like to become my disciple?" Disciple? What Inoichi means is that he wants to train you in the shinobi arts, Naruto-kun. The Hokage said, cutting into the conversation. Naruto was truly shocked. "Why would you want to train me? I'm not strong or fast, also most of the people in the village hate me. If the reason is only because you feel bad for me, then I will have to refuse your proposal, Yamanaka-san." Inoichi thought quickly and replied. "You're wrong. It is true that I felt bad for you when I saw you, but that is not the reason I want to take you as my apprentice. I have seen the way people treat you, and I can honestly say I am repulsed by it. No one deserves what you have been through. The people in this village have been a bunch of ignorant fools, me included, and I wish to repair some of the damage we have done to you. Also, I can't just ignore the great latent talent that you possess. Believe it or not, you are incredibly strong. Being able to survive all that has happened to you is more than proof enough to that. Besides, you remind me of a good friend of mine, Naruto-san." "Really? Who?" asked the curious boy. The blonde man shook his head. "If you become my disciple, I will someday tell you about him. He was a great man. I'm sure you would get along with him very well." Naruto stayed quiet, thinking about what he should do. He wanted to be a ninja and the respect that came with the profession, and now this man sitting on his left was offering him the chance to train him. He was sure that he would learn a lot by training under the blonde Jinin, and very probably such an opportunity would never present itself again, but doubt still lingered in his mind. After all, he just met the guy. There was always the possibility that the blonde man was only trying to trick him and then hurt him. The Hokage was surprised to see the boy acting so hesitantly. He imagined the boy would be happy after hearing that he could actually be trained by a Jinin. "Naruto-kun, Inoichi-san is a loyal shinobi of Konoha and one of the best in his job. If he were to train you, then you would surely be closer to your dream of being Hokage. Also, I assure you that he will take care of you if you decide to accept his help." The young boy perked up at hearing the Hokage. He expected to learn a lot, but could this man really help him reach his nearly impossible dream? "Hokage-sama is saying the truth. I want to train you, but also I want to grow you. I will provide you with food and a place to call home. If you need help in anything, I will help you, and if you are in danger, I will protect you. This I promise." Naruto was speechless. This man not only wanted to help him become stronger, he was also offering him food, a house to live in, and protection. Almost like a dad, thought the Uzumaki. Naruto Uzumaki made up his mind. He decided to believe in the man called Inoichi Yamanaka. The tension was killing the two older men, but they felt relieved when the blonde kid turned to them and gave a wide grin. "When do we start?" said the still grinning Jinchuriki. Hiruzen laughed and Inoichi sighed in relief. "We will begin with your training when you are released from the hospital, and that should be by tomorrow." "What? But I'm feeling fine already. I heal really fast, Inoichi-sensei." "Inoichi-sensei, not bad, I like how it sounds," thought the Jinin of the Leaf. "Naruto-kun, as your sensei, I know what's best for you, so you should believe in me when I say that you should stay here one more night so we can make sure you're completely healed." The whiskered boy pouted but nodded. "Fine, I will stay in this boring hospital if you say so, sensei." The Jinin grinned at the pouting boy. "Don't worry, later on today, I will bring my wife and my daughter so they can meet you." The young blonde nodded but still looked depressed. "I will bring you ramen." Instantly the boy's depressed mood disappeared and now only happiness could be read in the boy's face. "Yes. You are the best, sensei." Sarutobi couldn't help but smile at how quickly teacher and student were bonding. "Inoichi-san, I think it is time for us to let young Naruto rest." "Understood, Hokage-sama." "Naruto-kun, I will see you later today, okay?" Inoichi stood up and started walking out of the room, following the Hokage closely. "Alright, see you later, sensei and Jiji." As soon as the two men were out of the room, Naruto lay back down into his bed and once more he was looking up at a pure white ceiling. Maybe things will really change this time, and with that thought in his mind, Naruto closed his eyes to rest until his new sensei came back. Ino was bored. No, scratch that, she was beyond bored. As soon as her father came home, he insisted in talking to her mother alone about some important business, or at least he said it was, and left her in charge of the flower shop by the meantime. Normally she would be glad to be able to help her mother, but today almost no one passed by to buy something, leaving poor Ino with nothing to do except read a magazine. She was curious about what her parents were talking about. From time to time she could hear her mother screaming at him, something that wasn't really abnormal, but what really threw her off the loop was that her father was yelling back, something very rare in him. When the yells shaking the house ended, sobs didn't take long to make themselves heard. Now Ino was really worried. Did they have a big fight or something? Thought Ino while trying to push her ear further into the living room's door so she could hear better. Although her efforts continued, she was not able to hear any more of their conversation. They were probably whispering, after all, even her parents knew how much of a gossip monger their daughter was. Shrugging, the young Yamanaka returned to her watch point behind the counter of the flower shop. Soon after, both of her parents entered the flower shop and they immediately spotted their daughter who was watching them with a curious glance. Mayu, knowing how persistent her daughter could be with anything that was gossip-related, just sighed and directed at her. Ino-chan, it looks like your father has gotten himself a new apprentice. How about we go meet him? Ino blinked a couple of times. Wow. That was easy. We were going to tell you anyway, so it doesn't matter, shrugged Mayu. So what do you say, Ino-hime, do you want to meet daddy's new disciple? Ino's father asked her. Ino thought for a bit before answering. Sure daddy, I would like to. Replied a smiling Ino, well anything is better than staying here, I guess. Was left unspoken. Hearing his daughter's answer, Inoichi began to close the flower shop with the help of his wife while Ino went to her room to change. As Ino was walking up the stairs, she couldn't help but wonder who had caught her father's eye. She knew exactly who her father was, he was one of the most respected and powerful ninja in the village and a member of the renowned Inoshika CHM trio, one of the best teams in all the elemental nations. I'm sure daddy's apprentice is strong, smart and hopefully cute. And with that in her mind, Ino began the important task of finding something to wear, after all, she always dressed to impress. For Sarutobi Hiruzen today had been one of the best days he ever had since the Kikbi attacked. Finally the boy he had come to care for had someone that would take care of him and train him. The old Hokage was sure that in a few years the boy would show the world how strong a shinobi he really could be. When the Fire Shadow returned to his office feeling satisfied with the results at the hospital, he found something that he thought only in dreams could happen. There was no paperwork. The rest of the afternoon, Sarutobi just stayed in his office, drowning himself in his favorite hobby, the literature. The Lease Hokage giggled aloud and whipped a trail of blood that was running from his nose without losing his grip on the orange book that gave him so much entertainment. Sarutobi Hiruzen was an erudite in all kinds of poetry, writing, drawing and of course in literature. Constantly he would visit the Ninja Academy and feed the students with some of his vast knowledge in poetry, but poetry, writing and drawing be damned, the only art that really mattered to him was the literature, especially his favorite kind of literature, the smut. For Hiruzen, the smut was the epitome of art, nothing could express the human feelings as well as the smut. The scenes where a man made passionate love to his beloved one always filled the Hokage with a sea of emotions. Every point, comma or word was important. In other words, that little orange book wasn't a book, it was a compilation of emotions translated in ink by the author. That is why the Hokage always used his free time to read smut. It was not because of the sex. It was because of the deeper meaning of beauty that the book represented. So that's how you like it, huh? Once more the Hokage cleaned a trail of blood that came from his nose. Well, maybe it really was because of the sex. Suddenly Sarutobi's relaxed afternoon stopped, his ears caught the sound of someone knocking on his door. Sighing he hid his book below the desk and spoke to whoever it was. Enter. Soon after he said that, he instantly regretted it, the person that entered the room was none other than Danzo in all of his bandage glory. Sarutobi wasn't happy to see his longtime former friend, but didn't show it. What do you need, Danzo? I have just heard some very interesting news, Sarutobi. Is it true that Inoichi Yamanaka is going to train the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as his new disciple? The aged Hokage frowned. Care to tell me how you came into this piece of information? The bandaged man could clearly see the suspicion in the Hokage's eyes. He was waiting for him to slip and reveal the existence of his root, but one didn't stay alive in the ninja profession without brains. News as big as this does not take long to spread around, Sarutobi. It isn't every day a clan head takes someone as a disciple after all. Damn it, did Inoichi's daughter find out already? No, even if she knows it is still too early for the rumor to be spread as Danzo claims to. One of your rude Anbu was listening to my conversation with Inoichi yesterday, wasn't it? I do not know what you are talking about, Rude is already disbanded, Sarutobi. He is as sharp as ever, but he doesn't have any proof, so he can't do anything against me. The Warhawk thought. The two elderly men glared at each other for a while, neither one wanted to submit to the other. Then the Hokage let out a sigh. Why do you always try to make my job harder, Danzo? It is not my fault if you cannot deal with being Hokage. That is bullshit, Danzo. You're just still angered that Tobirama-sensei chose me as the third Hokage instead of you. The past is in the past, I no longer care about what occurred during the First Shinobi World War. So you say, but I'm sure that you still curse your own weakness. Danzo flinched after hearing Hiruzen speak those words, he felt insulted but couldn't deny the truth in those words. The first great Shinobi War, the war that transformed the Shinobi world in what it is today. The war started soon after the one ninja village per country system was established. This system allowed better organization among the villages and consequently they grew prosperous. At that time the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, divided the Bijk with the other villages, hoping to start a new era of peace, but that only fueled the greediness of the villages. The war taught the great ninja villages new tactics that are still used nowadays, but it also showed them how horrible a war against each other could be. During the conflict both Senju Hashirama and Tobirama died, but the latter one made sure to appoint his successor as the leader of the Leaf. It happened on a mission during the war. Team Tobirama alongside Kagami Uchiha, Torifu Akamichi and Danzo Himura were in a pinch. During the mission something went wrong, and they found themselves being tracked by a special team made up of 20 elite cloud ninja called the Kinkaku Force. It was just a matter of time for the Leaf Shinobi to be surrounded by their enemies. They knew the only way for them to be able to escape was that someone acted like a decoy. Of course everyone knew that whoever chose to be the decoy wouldn't be returning home. Danzo tried to volunteer, after all both his parent and grandparent had sacrificed themselves for their allies, and that was a trait that Danzo respected in both of them. He wanted to die honorable death like they did, but he just couldn't, knowing that he would not be returning to his village, filled the young man with fear. He wanted to be like his ancestors, but the prospect of him dying scared him. The ever-brave Sarutobi Hiruzen used the hesitation in Danzo and offered himself as the decoy. Unknown to them that was only a test to see who would be more fit to be Hokage. In the end Tobirama was the decoy and ultimately sacrificed himself, but before that he appointed the Sarutobi as his successor because of his bravery. "I regret nothing Sarutobi, at that time I wasn't ready to be Hokage," said Danzo with a calm expression on his face, his tone unreadable to the old Kage. "Are you trying to say that you are ready now? I have been ready to lead the Leaf for years now, I respect you Hiruzen, but you are no longer the same man that pulled the village through 3 great shinobi wars. How dare you? I may be old, but I am still strong enough to protect my village," the insulted Sandaime replied. Truth be told that was a sore subject for the aged Sarutobi. Several times now he has doubted his power, often asking himself if he could still protect the village, should the need arise. "I do not doubt your strength, Sarutobi, everyone knows that even if you are no longer in your prime, you could still fight any shinobi that dares to oppose you. What I doubt is your judgment and some of the decisions you make. I won't lie, Danzo, I have made several mistakes, but allowing Inoichi train the boy instead of you, it is one of the best decisions I have ever made. I know about your training methods, and I won't let you transform Naruto into a mindless drone. A tamed beast is the best kind of beast," said Danzo solemnly, but on the inside he was starting to lose his patience, just as the Hokage was. "He is a little boy, not a beast," screamed the Hokage. "He is a Jinchuriki," the bandaged man yelled back. "If we were able to suppress its feelings then we would not need to worry about the Kyuubi being released, also with such a powerful weapon, we would ensure the village's safety. How can you even think about sacrificing a child's life, Danzo?" Sarutobi's voice was getting louder by the second, but it also carried disappointment directed at his old friend. "Open your eyes, Sarutobi. In wars it doesn't matter if you are an adult or a kid, the only thing that matters is if you are able to wield a kunai to take someone's life, we have seen that many times before. In wars there are only tools and the people who use them, shinobi are those tools, and they live to spill the blood of their enemies. What does the life of a tool matters if it means protecting your home? I understand what you are saying, but you won't change my mind. Trust me Danzo, this is for the best." The old warhawk sighed. "There is no way to convince this stubborn old monkey." The resigned Danzo turned around and headed to the door, but before he grabbed the doorknob he spoke again. "You have grown soft Hiruzen, you and I are both living proof of how precious someone's sacrifice can really be. After all Tobirama-sama died for us, so we could make the Leaf into what it is today. One person's sacrifice saved hundreds of lives, remember that." With that said the warhawk opened the door and proceeded to walk out of the room. "Danzo, my old friend, heed my warning, don't do anything stupid and just believe in me this time," the Hokage said sincerely. Said man smirked later old friend. And with those words spoken, Danzo left room, knowing what he must do. Tonight he had a date with destiny. "You're that boy from yesterday." An enraged blonde girl yelled as she pointed at a small boy that was resting on a bed. The hospital room filled with blondes got quiet after hearing the outburst of the small girl. Her parents were confused by her attitude, but before one of them could speak up, the girl beat them to it. "I won't accept a jerk like you be trained by my daddy," Ino Yamanaka said and afterward ran off from the room, but was followed closely by her mother, who had a worried look on her face. "Ino-chan, wait up." After the blonde woman left the room hopping to catch her daughter, only 2 blonde men remained, one with a look of shock on his face, and the younger one just remained silent and with his head bowed. "You two knew each other Naruto?" Naruto nodded still with his head lowered. He didn't want to see the face of the man who had offered him to teach him just some hours ago. He knew what was going to happen now. The blonde man would scream at him and hate him just like everyone else. "Naruto-kun, look at me." Inoichi Yamanaka told the blonde boy, but said boy just remained in the same position as if he was petrified. Naruto, as your sensei I command you to look at me. The Uzumaki was surprised that the man still called himself as his sensei. Slowly he raised his head and focused on the blonde Junin on his side. The Junin gave a smile to the boy once he was looking at him in the eyes. Naruto, listen well, you must always keep your head held high and speak with others looking at them in the eyes. You are the same as anyone else so you don't need to feel inferior to the others. All I want to ask you is what happened between you and my daughter for her to be so mad. The Jinchuriki, moved by his sensei's words, gave the man a little smile and proceeded to tell him about what had happened the day before. Flashback. Uzumaki Naruto was currently stuffing his face with his favorite food in his favorite place. Normally he wouldn't dare to go out during the festival, but he miscalculated the amount of food he had in his apartment. He tried to withstand the hunger that assaulted him, however he couldn't resist the temptation of going to Ichiraku and ordering a big, hot and delicious bowl of ramen. For once he wanted to enjoy his birthday. The Ichiraku ramen bar was Naruto's favorite place in the whole village. The owner Tuchi and his daughter Ayam had always been kind to him and often gave him free servings. The stand was small and only had a few stools to sit on beside the counter, but never mind the size, Ichiraku was the best place to eat ramen. Well, at least Naruto thought so. The blonde boy was already eating his third bowl when he heard someone speak behind him. Hello. Naruto ignored the voice and continued slurping his noodles. Hey kid, I'm talking to you. The same energetic voice made itself heard again. This time Naruto turned around to look at the person who was talking. To his surprise, the one speaking was a little girl who looked about the same age as him. While Naruto was observing her, he couldn't deny how cute she was. Her platinum blonde hair reached down to her shoulders, adorned by a small blue hair clip, her eyes the color of emeralds, shone with an almost divine light, something Naruto was mesmerized by. The girl's clothes consisted in a long-sleeved light orange shirt with a black strip that circled the shirt's neck and ran down the sides of the arms, circling a sign of the boar just before reaching the end of the sleeves. She wore dark purple pants that ended almost at her ankles. She also used a couple of silver bracelets and a silver necklace in her left arm and neck respectively. Are you talking to me? Naruto said while pointing at himself. The blonde girl stared at him like if he was dumb. Duh, of course I'm talking to you, you are the only kid in here. Naruto laughed sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. You are right, so what do you need? The boy tried to sound cool but failed miserably. This was the first time a girl his age ever talked to him and he wanted to give her a good impression, but his nerves were in the way. Luckily for Naruto, it seemed that the girl didn't hear his stuttering, or maybe she just didn't care. I'm looking for my daddy, I think he got lost, have you seen him? The blonde boy sweat dropped. You sure it was not you who got lost? The green-eyed girl took a step back and responded. It doesn't matter who got lost. Have you seen him or not? How is he like? Putting her hand below her chin and closing her eyes, the girl replied. Well, he is like big and strong, and also he has blonde hair. Oh. He also is a shinobi and one of the best in his job. Naruto, though, for a moment trying to remember if anyone fitting the blonde girl description entered the stand. Sorry, no one with yellow hair has come in here. The girl sighed. Well, thanks for the a loud growl that could have scared the fiercest of the beasts, interrupted the young girl, making her embarrassed because the growl was coming from her, more specifically, from her stomach. The ramen stand got silent after the beast-like growl was heard. Neither the boy nor the girl moved, feeling like if the time had frozen. Finally, the uncomfortable silence was broken by none other than Naruto and his boisterous laughing. The poor girl's face flushed red in humiliation. Don't laugh at me. Meanwhile, Naruto was holding his side, still laughing hard. When he finally stopped, the girl was already fuming. Are you done? Asked the blonde girl while glaring at the boy sitting on the stool. Sorry, are you hungry? Wow, you are a genius. Exclaimed the girl with sarcasm dripping from her words. Okay, I understand, I'm sorry, it was mean of me to laugh at you. You can have one of my bowls if you want. I'm not really a fan of ramen. Countered the still mad girl. If you say that, then I'm sure you haven't tasted Ichiraku's ramen, this is the food of the gods. And also it looks like you really need it, Tobeo. The platinum blonde girl reflected on what she should do. I'm really hungry and I don't have money with me, I'm sure daddy will be fine without me for a while. Whatever. But that said, the girl walked to the stool next to the boy and sat on it. Naruto immediately passed her one of the bowls that was waiting to be eaten by him. My name is Naruto, by the way. Nice to meet you, I'm Ino. The girl presented herself before staring at the bowl Naruto passed her, which was filled at the brim with warm broth, noodles and other ingredients she couldn't recognize. Carefully, the blonde girl poked at the strange mix with her chopstick. Then she gathered all of her courage and tasted the ramen in front of her. Ino's eyes opened wide in surprise. Naruto wasn't exaggerating, this is the best ramen I have ever tasted. The girl closed her eyes to enjoy more the pleasure that the heavenly flavor was giving to her mouth. When she opened her eyes she was face to face with a blonde kid. Ino almost fell from her stool because of the sudden approximation of Naruto. So, isn't this ramen the best in the whole village? Asked a young Jinchuriki with a big grin on his face. Alright, I admit it, this is the best ramen I have ever tasted in my life. Well, thank you for the compliment, young lady. Both blondes turned to look at the man behind the counter. Hey there, Oji-san, meet Ino, she is another ramen lover, just like me. It is nice to meet you, Ino-san, my name is Tucci, I am the owner of this ramen bar. The dark-skinned man told the girl with a smile on his face and a chef cap on his head. Nice to meet you too, Tucci-san, excuse me, but have you seen my father pass by? Ah. That's right, Oji-san, Ino-chan here is lost. No, I'm not, my daddy is the one who is lost. I'm sorry, Ino-san, but I haven't seen Inoichi-san today. I see. The girl looked sad after hearing the ramen chef tell her the bad news. Naruto for some reason didn't want to see the lively Ino act so depressed, so he came up with a plan. Hey, I got an idea, Ino-chan, I'm going to help you find your dad. Proclaimed an excited Naruto to the platinum blonde girl sitting next to him. Really? Thank you, Naruto, I appreciate it. Ino said while showing a bright smile to the whiskered boy, who blushed at the sight. And no problem, let's look for him together after eating, of course. Two blonde kids were exploring every nook and cranny of the village, desperately looking for the father of one of them. It was a wild goose chase. There were just too many people crowding the streets to be able to find someone, but not even the cold night was able to freeze their spirits. After 30 minutes of extensive searching, they returned to the place where they started. It is useless, Naruto, finding my daddy when there are so much people is impossible. Said Ino while leaning against the wall of the building next to Ichiraku. Come on, Ino-chan, don't give up, we will find him, Dadabeo. Naruto's words reassured Ino and gave her the strength she needed to continue. The platinum blonde smiled at the boy. You're very kind, Naruto, you know that. Naruto turned his head so Ino would not see him blush because of her compliment and then spoke to the blonde girl. Anyway, I guess we should stay here and wait if your dad comes by, after all in this street there's few people. Ino giggled when she saw Naruto attempting to hide his blush. You are right, here we have good visibility so we would be able to spot him easily. The two kids stood next to each other in a comfortable silence. The music of the festival reached their ears while they saw people passing by, but no one had the kind of blonde hair they were looking for. Suddenly something caught Naruto's attention. Walking down the street he could see three dim figures and they were acting abnormally. The figures were walking unsteadily, almost leaning against each other. Naruto could clearly hear their loud chuckles and slurred words. He grew worried when he saw how they pointed at him and Ino. And finally he heard the words he feared the most. There is the demon child. One of them screamed. The three figures began accelerating their steps while screaming and laughing maniacally. Naruto had to act quickly. He now knew that those men were drunk and would do anything to hurt him. He thought about running away, but then he glanced at Ino and saw her worried face. Naruto, what is going on? Why are those men coming at us and what are they saying? The Jinchuriki panicked. He feared that those men in their drunken stupor would try to hurt Ino. He could not let that happen. If they see her she will be killed. With that in mind Naruto acted. The Uzumaki turned to Ino and then pushed her as hard as he could into an alley. Afterwards he ran as hard as he could towards the drunk men and tackled them to the ground. Why you? Damn demon, I'm going to kill ya. One of the three men said before he and the other two men chased the escaping blonde into an alley. Meanwhile Ino was on the floor. After Naruto pushed her she crashed against a garbage can and fell, covering her in trash. Ugh, groaned Ino loudly. Why did he do that? He told me he would help me find my dad and now he has abandoned me here. The covered in filth blonde stood up shakily and dusted herself off. Ino sniffed and felt tears brimming at her eyes. Naruto had betrayed her and now she was cold, scared and alone. Daddy, where are you? End of flashback. So that's what happened. The only Yamanaka in the room was now leaning against the wall next to the kid's bed, thinking about what the young boy had told him. Yeah, I'm sorry about what I did. Naruto told him with a sincere tone of voice. Why are you sorry, Naruto-kun? If what you told me was the truth then I should be thanking you. You did the right choice at pushing Ino so they wouldn't see her. Drunk people are the most unpredictable of all. Naruto was once again relieved that his sensei wasn't mad at him, but he still felt bad for Ino. He wanted to apologize to the blonde girl, but he doubted she would even want to see him. Inoichi could clearly see what was bothering Naruto, so he put a hand on the boy's head and spoke to him. Don't worry, Naruto, I will talk to Ino later and tell her the reason why you pushed her. You will see that by tomorrow everything will be just fine. Naruto smiled to the Junin. Thanks for everything, Inoichi-sensei. The blonde Junin smirked. Just wait until our training starts and then we will see how thankful you really are. Naruto paled at seeing his sensei's creepy grin. He could only imagine what kind of devilish training he will have to go through, but he didn't care. He was excited at having the chance to learn from a strong Junin. Right, I will give it my best. Good, because I won't accept anything else from you. Now I think I should leave, you need to rest and I need to talk to Ino. Tomorrow as soon as the hospital's doors open I will come to take you to your new home. Will why you really return tomorrow? The boy asked unsurely. Of course Naruto-kun, it is a promise. Naruto showed a big smile to the jounin, a smile full of life, excitement and joy, a perfect example of how a kid's smile should be. Now he understood why the Sandaime wanted to protect his smile, it was impossible not to smile back. You got yourself a disciple, Inoichi. In a bar 3 good friends sat next to each other. They had been together in the good and the bad times, in dangerous missions and in wars, but they always worked as a team, or better said as a one. I'm surprised Inoichi, being a sensei is really troublesome, said a man with 2 scars on the right side of his face, as well as a goatee on his chin. For you Shikaku, everything is troublesome. Hey waiter, bring me one more round of everything in your menu, will you? A big man with blue marks on his cheeks, long red hair and a piece of white cloth tied around his forehead spoke up cheerfully. Don't tell me what I have to do, chmza, I got too much on my plate these days. The man in the black and spiky ponytail told the big man before taking another sip of his sake. Sure you do, sure you do. The man named Chmza stated disbelievingly before munching away on the food that had just arrived to their table. Suddenly Shikaku and Chmza heard sobbing coming from the space between them. When they turned their heads they saw a man with sand blonde hair resting his head on the table and his left and right hands grabbing a saucer and a bottle of sake respectively. Are you crying Inoichi? The Jounin garbed in a mesh shirt, a jounin vest and a brown dirty looking coat asked his blonde friend. It is just that, I don't know how to feel Inoichi spoke while sobbing. I'm happy that I will be a sensei, but I'm sad because this means I will have less time to spend with you guys. A man garbed in a samurai-like outfit laughed hard and loud. You're talking the same way you did the night before your wedding with Mayu. Shikaku had a smirk on his face. Don't forget, Chmza, that he also talked this way the night he found out his wife was pregnant. Oh, I remember that. He spent all night talking about how happy he was and ended up throwing up on your coat Shikaku. Yeah, I remember that. Because of you, Inoichi, Yoshino beat me up spoke Shikaku glaring at the man sitting next to him. Hey that was your own fault you lazy bastard. You kept wearing that coat without even washing it for 2 days. Argued the Yamanaka. The normally smart man was at a loss of word, so he just replied with the most intelligent word he could come up with. Troublesome. The 3 friends kept talking and joking around some more, but their fun was cut short by the flashy appearance of an anbu and a swirl of leaves. Yamanaka-san, Hokage-sama wishes to speak with you, please follow me. The ninja in white mask spoke. What you say, what does he want at this hour of the night? The slightly inebriated blonde said with the sake slurring his words. I'm not allowed to tell you Yamanaka-san and it is still the evening. Replied the mysterious ninja. Fine, lead the way smartest Anbu-san. And with that the Anbu left the bar with a Jounin in tow. Mza, what kind of animal represented that Anbu's mask? Where is he taking me? The blonde man thought while jumping across the orange sky, the Anbu had told him they were going to meet with the Hokage, but they were going in the opposite direction of the Hokage tower. When the now sober Inoichi asked the Anbu where they would meet the Hokage, the Anbu just ignored him and kept on jumping. Now Inoichi was getting suspicious about this Anbu, he had never seen a mask that resembled his, and the way he behaved was too emotionless, even for an Anbu. The sand blonde's mind came up with the only reasonable solution that could explain the weird behavior of the masked shinobi. Is he a member of Danzo's route? The Sandaime had warned Inoichi about Danzo and his plans, but if he wished to be able to teach Naruto, then he knew that sooner or later he would have to confront the bandaged man and let him know that Inoichi Yamanaka was not someone to fuck with. For several more minutes the Yamanaka followed the hooded man. They passed a large clearing with a lake of crystalline water surrounded by trees, in the background the sunset could still be seen peeking through a couple of mountains, and in the middle of the clearing, there were 3 big logs. Inoichi identified the place as the 3rd training ground, the same place where Team Hiruzen passed their test and became full-fledged shinobi. The 2 men slowed down and walked a little more until they reached their destination. In front of Inoichi was a man giving him his back, the blonde jounin was unsurprised to see that the figure the remnants of light of the expiring sun revealed was no other than the Cold War hawk, Danzo Shimura. Danzo, what is going on? I was told that the Hokage wanted to see me. The elderly man seemingly ignored his question and asked one of his own. Yamanaka-san, do you know the meaning of a sacrifice? Inoichi was confused for a moment, but then fixated his eyes in the thing that Danzo was facing and gasped. That is the memorial stone, so that is what you mean, you sick man. The puzzling crap Danzo, if you have a problem about Naruto being my apprentice, then face me and tell me. The old war hawk turned around and faced the blonde jounin. Very well, Inoichi Yamanaka, I want you to consider once again your decision of teaching the boy Uzumaki. There is nothing to consider Danzo, I will teach the boy. Inoichi told the old man in front of him. He seems really decided about teaching the boy very well. You leave me no other choice, Inoichi Yamanaka, I will have to use it. Yamanaka-san, why do you want to teach the boy that has caused so much suffering to our village? During the Kikbi attack, many civilians and shinobi alike perished because of that monster. Some of the shinobi that died were part of some clan like the Uchiha, the Hyuga, the Inyazuka, the Aburam, the Akimichi, the Nara, the Senju, the Sarutobi and even the Yamanaka. Why do you want to protect the one responsible for the deaths of so many of your loved ones, Inoichi? Inoichi wanted to deny Danzo's words, but he couldn't find it in him. He is right, Naruto is the one who killed many of my friends and family. He is a monster, he does not deserve any kind of pity or mercy. The monster does not deserve pity or mercy. Slowly the old man's words were ingraining themselves deep inside the Junin's mind. You are right, Danzo, Naruto is a monster, the monster that took the lives of my loved ones. Good, Inoichi, you are starting to see the truth, now you won't train him, will you? I won't, Inoichi started to say, but then, Inoichi-san, I am sure Naruto will accept your proposal, that's why I ask you, not as a Hokage, but as a grandfather, that you take good care of him. Sarutobi, once again looking at the moon, said. The Yamanaka smiled and replied. I promise that I will take good care of him, Sarutobi-san. I promised to the Hokage that I would protect his smile. But why you really return tomorrow? The boy asked unsurely. Of course Naruto-kun, it is a promise. Naruto showed a big smile to the Jounin, a smile full of life, excitement and joy, a perfect example of how a kid's smile should be. Now he understood why the Sandaime wanted to protect his smile, it was impossible not to smile back. I promised Naruto that I would help him, protect him to return tomorrow. I won't believe any more of the crap you are spewing from your mouth. I said I would teach the boy, and that is final. Answered an angry Yamanaka. As expected of a Yamanaka, he has strong mental defenses, but it is still amazing how easily he resisted my mind control technique. A frowning Danzo thought his plan A had failed, but he still had a lot of aces under his sleeve. The boy must be trained by me so he can reach his full potential. A perfectly trained and emotionless Jinchuriki would be the perfect weapon, every other nation would think twice before crossing us. What does the life of a child matter when it means protecting a village full of people? Inoichi sent a glare to the bandaged man, but said man kept on talking. As you know, this place is called the Memorial Stone. This is the place where the names of the brave are carved in stone. The roots that support our village are made of the sacrifice of this men and women who died to protect our village. By denying me the boy, you are dishonoring the sacrifice of our heroes. Continue talking if you wish, but I'm out of here. I won't change my mind no matter what kind of speech you give me. The blonde man turned around and got ready to leave, but Danzo wouldn't have any of that. You have a wife and a daughter, don't you? Asked the serene old man. Inoichi stopped dead in his tracks and turned to give the old man a glare with all the hate he could muster. Now if looks could kill, Danzo would be underground by now. Don't even think about it, Danzo. The warhawk stood there unfazed by the Junin's glare. It would be a pity if something occurred to them. After all, accidents tend to happen. Are you threatening my family, you bastard? Asked Inoichi through clenched teeth. Now, what could you be talking about? I'm just saying that there could be dangerous people wandering around, watching your house, waiting for a simple order so they can barge in and attack your family. Danzo, you dirty, old bag of bones, when this is over I will screw your mind so badly that you will think you are a shit-eating rabbit. Do you understand now, Yamanaka? That boy is nothing but troubles. Are you willing to risk your family for him? Smirked Danzo while looking at the seething blonde man. Forget about Naruto Uzumaki and live happily with your family. Inoichi lowered his head, Danzo had him trapped. Damn it, this bastard could have assigned some of his ninja to stalk my family. If I go to the Hokage and tell him about the threats, then who knows what Danzo would do to Mayu and Ino. Inoichi knew that going to the Hokage would be useless. Danzo had too many followers, so it wouldn't be an easy task sentencing him, and he would just put his family at risk. Danzo smirked wider this time at seeing how Inoichi was at loss of words. Good, Yamanaka-san, I think you won. Thump. A loud crashing sound interrupted the old man. He tried to turn his head so he could see what happened, but strangely, he found his body paralyzed. What is the meaning of this? A confused Danzo asked. Threatening a clan head, huh? You really fucked up this time, you troublesome man. Inoichi raised his head after hearing the familiar voice. Behind Danzo he located Shimza, using one of his enlarged arms to squash the shinobi with the blank mask whom he had to follow, and Shikaku standing still with his hands forming the rat seal. He looked at the black-haired Junin's feet and he found a shadow coming from him and merging with Danzo's shadow. Nara, I demand you to release your technique. This is an act of aggression towards one of Konoha's elders, and if you don't, then you will be gravely punished for your actions. The always centered Danzo said. And why should he, you fossil? We heard you threatening Inoichi's family, we will take your ass to the Hokage so he can put you to rot in a cage. The large Redeed yelled to the immobilized man, his arm was now a normal size, and the root shinobi was on the ground, unmoving. "Wait guys. He has some of his shinobi stalking my family," screamed a scared Inoichi. "No he doesn't, he is just bluffing Inoichi," the man in the spiky ponytail replied. The bandaged man snorted. "How can you be so sure Nara-san?" Shikaku smirked and explained. "Me and Shimza have been listening to your conversation for a while now, and I know you are bluffing because you said some dangerous men could be watching Inoichi's house, waiting for a simple order so they could barge in and attack his family." The Warhawk looked confused. "Yes, so what, that doesn't prove anything." "Well, right now Mayu and Ino aren't in their house, they went out to eat with our families, so that proves that your prior statement is wrong, you don't know where they are, and neither does your root." The old man growled under his breath, his facade was destroyed because of a simple error he made. "Still you don't have any proof that I did threaten Inoichi Yamanka, if you take me to the Hokage, then it will be my word against yours," Shimura said attempting to reassure himself that they couldn't touch him. "And that is exactly like we wanted, old fool." The Akamichi spoke. "The Hokage is already suspicious about you, he will surely believe more in the words of 3 of his most loyal shinobi, rather than an old man that is always plotting behind his back. I have the council on my side." Danzo's voice was getting louder, showing his desperation. "Oh please, Kaharu and Utatane won't save you this time. They have also been getting on the Hokage's nerves lately, but before we go how about we see what are you hiding behind so many bandages?" Danzo's eye widened, but before he could say something his body began moving on its own, his body turned around just enough for Shikaku and Shimza to be able to see him. Shikaku began grabbing and pulling like if he had something wrapped around his face, making Danzo imitate his movements. Slowly the wraps fell to the floor, revealing Danzo's naked face to the orange light of the sunset. Both Shikaku and Shimza leaned closer to look better at the wrinkled face of the man. It seemed normal, but then he opened his right eye. When both Jounin saw his eye, they started to feel dizzy. "That is the Sharingan," the black-haired Jounin thought before falling to his knees, losing the control of his technique in the process. As soon as Danzo was free he jumped back to make space between him and the 3 Jounin. Shikaku, Inoichi and Shimza ran to their teammate and helped him up. While they were helping him, Inoichi caught sight of Danzo and his red eye with 3 black tomos. "Danzo, why do you have a Sharingan?" Inoichi's answer was Danzo inhaling deeply and releasing a large sphere of wind towards them. The 3 men jumped away from each other to evade the attack. "You have seen too much, the moment you saw my Sharingan was the moment you signed your death warrants," Danzo said and made the sign of the dog with his hands. "Mza, Inoichi, formation Ino Shikacho now." The team regrouped and prepared for the battle. "Ton. Shinkyoku, wind release." Vacuum sphere, Danzo inhaled and exhaled plenty of small spheres of wind that dispersed through the battlefield. Yuban Baika no Jutsu. Partial multi-size technique. Shimza quickly enlarged his arm, and in a great show of strength he hit the ground, and a piece of rock larger than the Akamichi himself rose from the ground. Before the wind spheres could hit, Inoichi and Shikaku covered themselves behind the big rock and Shimza. The wind spheres crashed against the wall of rock and a cloud of dust covered the battlefield. Before the dust could disappear completely Danzo saw a big human-sized bowl rolling towards him. Thinking quickly Danzo jumped and blew air from his mouth to elevate himself. Once in the air he began looking for the blonde and the black-haired men, but he couldn't find them. They must have separated themselves when the cloud of dust blocked my vision. Suddenly he heard someone yell. "Kaiten. Kankakik no Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique." And a large fireball approached him. In mid-air evading was a difficult task, so once more Danzo blew a gust of wind, this time to propel himself back to earth and escape the raging fireball. The Warhawk landed softly, but he immediately regretted his decision. Tendrils of shadow came at him with the intention of piercing him. Acting promptly he undid the wrappings on his right arm and did 3 hand signs in rapid succession, but that didn't stop the black needles from piercing repeatedly his body like it was made of butter. Shikaku sighed while watching the bleeding man impaled on his technique from his hiding position. Their plan had worked perfectly. Shimza had made Danzo jump into the air, where Inoichi was waiting to shoot one of his fire jutsu that everyone knew the old man would evade, but the Warhawk did exactly what Shikaku wanted. "At least it is over," thought the Nara, but then the body of Danzo just vanished like if it was never there. As expected of the Junin commander, your tactical skills are top-notch. Shikaku spun quickly with a kunai in hand, but he wasn't fast enough, and Danzo grabbed his neck before punching him with his now unwrapped right arm. The punch was so strong that Shikaku was sent flying out of his hiding place behind some bushes and almost crashed against Shimza that was in the middle of the clearing. "Are you alright, Shikaku?" "Yeah, I'm fine, but that bag of bones has a mean right hook," Shikaku said while spitting a glob of blood from his mouth. "Wait, you said a right hook?" asked the big man. The smart Jounin quickly understood what his friend meant. Danzo's right arm was wrapped just as his right eye, and now he had it unwrapped. "Shimza, be careful, who knows what kind of creepy thing he did to his right arm." The two men heard some rustling coming from the bushes and immediately after Danzo walked out. The Jounin observed his arm and indeed it was unwrapped, but then gasped at the heinous thing that Danzo's right arm was. 5 Sharingan, 5 twitching and moving blood-red eyes were embedded onto his arm. Where did you get those Sharingan, Danzo? From here and there. It's a long story. Danzo said casually. Why you monster? Chimza exclaimed before activating his jutsu. Nikkuden Sensha, human bullet tank. Once more Chimza became a human-sized ball and rolled towards Danzo. Chimza, wait. Shikaku's words fell into blind ears as the big ball went in the direction of their enemy. This time however Danzo didn't try to evade it, actually he ran facing the now made Bulgmin. Everyone watching expected to see Danzo crushed, but that never happened, the human bullet tank passed right through the elder without hurting him. Confused about what just happened Chimza came to an halt, but that resulted to be a grave error on his part because as soon as the tank passed through him, Danzo threw a couple of kunai infused with wind chakra, with their objective being the large man. In the last moment a couple of kunai sailed through the wind and collided against the kunai launched by the Warhawk. You okay, Chimza? Inoichi asked his fellow ninja from on top of a tree. Thanks Inoichi, I thought I was a goner. Chimza said while drying the beads of sweat that had formed on his forehead. Inoichi nodded and saw that Danzo had given them some space. The sand blonde man focused for a moment and thought. Shikaku, can you hear me? Inoichi, what are you doing using your telepathy this way? It will consume plenty of your chakra. I know man, but we need to find out what is the secret behind his arm. Do you have any idea? Well, I find it strange that just a moment ago he charged head-on, but now he backed away. Also I think I saw that one of his Sharingan closed. Do you think it had anything to do with the way Chimza's jutsu passed through him without hurting him? Could it have been a Jinjutsu? It wasn't an illusion Inoichi, you saw how he threw those kunai at Chimza when his jutsu didn't affect him. I'm sure that whatever he did it is related to that arm of his. He must have used the same technique he used to escape my Kage Nui no Jutsu, shadow sewing technique. Then what is the plan? This is going to be really troublesome, but we must force him to use that technique until he closes all of his Sharingan, then maybe he will become unable to use it or capture him when he isn't using it, but before that we must find out how he activates it. Alright Shikaku, I will tell Chimza, now let's do this. Inoichi cancelled his telepathy and told Chimza the information they got before going to aid the shadow user who was busy evading blasts of wind. Damn, this geezer has a good pair of lungs thought Shikaku before being forced to evade another one of Danzo's wind jutsu. In an error of his, he miscalculated the trajectory of the wind sphere and it ended up partially hitting him and throwing him to the floor. Danzo at seeing his downed opponent withdrew one of his kunai and exhaled wind chakra into it, forming a sharp blade similar to a sword, then ran towards him with the full intent to stab him. When he got close enough he jumped and prepared to pierce the Jimnin with his wind sword, but to his surprise a large fist crashed against him, making him fly back a couple of meters before falling to the ground hard. Now, Inoichi! Exclaimed Chimza. The Yamanaka jumped from the tree he was in and threw several kunai to Danzo, said man saw them coming at him. The man smirked at how easy they were to evade, but his smirk turned into a frown when he saw that they had something attached to them. Explosive tags. Danzo quickly performed 3 hand signs before the fire and smoke engulfed him. The explosion rocked the woods and some of the trees began to burn, debris and wood splinters rained down the sky, and a large cloud of smoke consumed the clearing. Inside said cloud, 3 men stood next to each other in a defensive formation. Stay alert, this isn't over yet. The tallest one of the group spoke. Inoichi, can you sense his chakra? The man in the black and spiky ponytail asked the man next to him. Yes I can. He isn't very far from here. Expect an attack from the north, after all he can probably see us with his Sharingan. The sand blonde man told his teammates. Everyone to the ground. The 3 Jinin threw themselves to the ground and immediately after they could hear the distinct sound of shuriken whistling past their heads. The smoke disappeared and Inoichi saw Danzo charging at them. Shinranshin no jutsu, mind-body disturbance technique. Inoichi aimed at Danzo, but his jutsu didn't affect Danzo. Damn it, nothing works against him. Thought the frustrated Inoichi. Danzo was about to stab Inoichi with a kunai held by his left hand, but Shikaku managed to use one of his shadows to wrap around the old man's arm and stop his attack. Chimza used this moment to attack. Buben Baiken no jutsu. Partial multi-size technique. Chimza expanded the size of both of his arms, jumped, and hit Danzo with a powerful double hammer fist, successfully crushing the man. The only thing left of him was a puddle of blood beneath Chimza's fist. Chimza smirked believing he had defeated Danzo, but Shikaku thought otherwise. Danzo wouldn't be defeated so easily. Something is very wrong here. Shikaku's prediction hit right on the spot. The old figure of Danzo abruptly materialized behind Chimza. The Warhawk blew some wind chakra in one kunai he was holding and swung at the unexpected Akimichi. The kunai slashed easily Chimza's skin creating a large gash on his back. Hageas no jutsu. Shadow endgame technique. Shikaku's shadow transformed into countless thin tentacles, the shadow tendrils stretched towards Chimza and pulled him away from danger before Danzo could attack him again. Immediately after Shikaku pulled Chimza away from Danzo, a kunai with an explosive tag attached to it flew rapidly in the direction of the old man. The explosion caused by the explosive kunai was remarkably smaller than the other ones, but to everyone's surprise when the smoke dispersed, they saw a burned Danzo without the upper part of his outfit. Shikaku's eyes traveled to the burned man's right arm. Just as I thought, once he performs the sign of the rabbit, the boar and the ram he activates his technique. If that technique is activated then somehow he can't be damaged, but after 30 seconds pass one of his Sharingan closes and he becomes vulnerable again. The Nara explained to his teammates. Inoichi nodded. You are right, Shikaku. Also each time one of his eyes close, I feel a drastic plummet in his chakra levels. I'm amazed you have found out how Izanagi works. Good for you, but that won't help you. Spoke the mild-cooked elder. Surrender Danzo, by now someone should have heard the sounds of our battle. It won't take long before someone comes to assist us. I won't give up, the village needs me. I shall live and make the leaf invincible. It was now that Shikaku noticed something on the now completely naked right arm of Danzo. Why is there a face on your shoulder? The old man laughed and looked at his shoulder. You see, I needed to make some adjustments in my body to be able to maintain so many Sharingan. What you see here is the result of experimenting with the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, cells. You crazy old man, the only thing you wish for is power. The injured Chimza said and attempted to stand up, but he was in too much pain to do so. Rest for a while, Chimza. Don't worry my friend, we will take care of Danzo. Spoke Shikaku to the large man who only nodded. Danzo didn't waste more time and begun his jutsu. Inoichi at seeing the hand signs he made he prepared a jutsu of his own. Ton. Shink Tajoku, wind release. Vacuum great sphere, Danzo inhaled deeply and then released a large sphere of wind chakra. Hain. Nkakik no jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique, Inoichi also inhaled, but then instead of wind he blew a big orb made of fire through a ring he made with his thumb and his index finger. The two jutsu clashed and competed in a bout of pure strength, but eventually the fireball won their match and sailed towards the defenseless Danzo. The elder demonstrated his agility by evading the fireball, but he wasn't expecting to have his body immobilized by Shikaku's shadow. It is over Danzo Kage Kubi Shibari no Jutsu. Shadow neckbind technique. The shadow beneath Danzo extended to his throat in the form of a hand and started to choke him. For a moment the Junin believed they had won, but suddenly Shikaku began to tremble and his body was covered by strange black marks. What is going on? Shikaku stuttered out, he couldn't keep his focus, and so the jutsu he had Danzo trapped in broke. The now freed Danzo calmly responded. That is the seal I normally use in my shinobi to ensure no one talks about the secrets of root. Shikaku tried to remember when Danzo could have applied such a seal on him. You applied a T to me when you grabbed me by the throat, didn't you? You are a smart man, Shikaku, too bad that you shall die today. The Warhawk faced Inoichi. Do you see now the result of your stubbornness, Yamanaka? The three of you are going to die because you were so obsessed in training that little monster. Do not call him a monster. He deserves to be seen as a hero, but everyone treats him like a plague. The sand blonde Jounin yelled to the man in front of him. Why should he be seen as a hero? Because his father was the Yondaime. The trio of Jounin were surprised, two of them because of the revelation that Minato Namikaze was the father of Naruto Uzumaki, and the other one because Danzo knew about the boy's lineage. You had someone spying on the conversation between the Hokage and me, didn't you? Asked the enraged Inoichi. That is not important. Tell me Inoichi, do you understand why the fourth sealed the beast inside his own son? I will tell you why. Minato Namikaze was a great Hokage because he understood the real meaning of a sacrifice. He sacrificed his son so the village could make a weapon out of him, he did it for the leaf, in the end he knew that the life of a child is only one life. Inoichi frowned and gripped his fist so hard that his nails dug into his skin. Shut up. You don't know anything about Minato. He sealed the fox in Naruto to protect the village and he wished that everyone saw him as a hero, but thanks to you and your cursed silver tongue, almost all of the villagers see him as a monster. I knew Minato personally, he always told me how happy he would be if he became a father and I'm sure if he would have known of how his son would be treated then he would have allowed the Kikbi to crush this village. The normally calm Danzo now was furious. Enough. I won't allow you to dirty the name of a great Hokage such as Minato Namikaze. The afternoon breeze blew and carried with itself the leaves that have fallen from the trees that surrounded them. The carefree leaves danced alongside the wind in a slow waltz that seemed to ignore time, but in the ballroom that was the clearing two men prepared for their peace, but this was a mortal dance, in the end only one would live to dance another day. Once the sound of the rustling trees ended and silence reigned over the battlefield the two warriors charged at each other, hate being the fuel that moved their legs, and the desire to kill the other one motivated them to fight. When the fighters reached the middle of the clearing they clashed into a fierce taijutsu match. Inoichi made the first move by throwing a strong uppercut that was easily parried by the elder, but the old man didn't stop there. He exploited the undefended side of the blonde Jounin and threw a short jab to the ribs. The jab connected, but the Jounin was barely hurt. Taking the offensive again, Inoichi tried to backfist Danzo, but said man crouched and countered with an uppercut, this time the Jounin evaded successfully. Inoichi resumed his attack with a low reverse roundhouse kick. Danzo jumped over his kick, but he wasn't expecting for Inoichi to use the momentum of his kick to connect a devastating jumping back kick to his chest. The Warhawk staggered back holding his chest, the kick was strong enough to push the air out of his lungs. Inoichi took this chance and continued his assault on his opponent, who could only block at the incessant barrage of punches. At seeing that Inoichi now had the upper hand, Danzo decided that it was time to turn the tables. Enduring the hits of the Jounin, the Warhawk gathered chakra in his inhuman right arm and smashed it against the Jounin's face. The Yamanaka was sent flying from the force the punch had and came to a halt when his back crashed against a tree. Shit, Inoichi is in trouble, but neither I nor Chimza can do anything to help him, the paralyzed Shikaku thought. I need to help him, I'm the most suited for close combat. Chimza struggled to stand up and in the end he did it, but just barely. Hey Danzo, it is time for the second round. I made sure to give you a deep cut, with all the blood that you have lost you won't lay a single finger on me. Said Danzo arrogantly. We will see about that. Chimza ran towards Danzo with his arm cocked back and when he got close enough he punched, only to meet Danzo's own punch. The two ninja pushed to see which punch was stronger, but in terms of physical strength they were in a stalemate. After a while Danzo retreated and used one of his jutsu against Chimza. Ton. Tatapa, wind release. Great breakthrough, the elder released a gust of wind strong enough to blow away the large Akimichi. Suddenly, Danzo was forced to block a flying kick coming from Inoichi, although he blocked he lost his balance, and Inoichi used this time to throw punch after punch. For the most part the black-haired elder was able to block or parry the hits, but that didn't mean that he was unscathed. The flurry of punches and kicks were starting to tire him out, so he used the first chance he got to counterattack with his left arm. The punch struck the blonde man's stomach and a cracking sound was heard. Danzo smirked, knowing that his punch had broken some of his opponent's ribs, but to his chagrin, the blonde Jounin grabbed his arm and didn't let go. While struggling to free his arm from the blonde's grip, Danzo heard someone approaching him from behind. He turned his face to see who it was. Is that Inoichi? No, with my Sharingan I can see it is a shadow clone. Danzo attempted to protect himself against the clone's assault, but it was too late. The clone used a kunai he had in his hand and stabbed it right into one of the Sharingan embedded in the elder's arm. Arg. Danzo screamed in pain of having a kunai lodged into one of his eyes. The real Inoichi, seeing an opening, delivered a roundhouse kick to the side of the head of the elder. Danzo hit the ground and when he managed to stand up he found himself once again unable to move. The sand blonde man spun and saw his black-haired friend. Shikaku, you escaped from the seal. Yeah, just as you said, each time one of his Sharingan closes his chakra lowers drastically. Once I released a burst of my chakra, it was a piece of cake to break his seal. Explained the Nara while maintaining his jutsu. No. I won't fail. Danzo screamed while fighting to break free of Shikaku's jutsu, and to everyone's surprise he was succeeding. Shikaku, what is going on? How can he be moving while being trapped by Thikajime no Jutsu, shadow imitation technique? Asked desperately Inoichi. I don't know. Abruptly Shikaku noticed the lack of sunlight in the clearing. Damn it, how could I forget about the time, it is night already. No matter how hard Shikaku tried, the lack of light weakened his jutsu and eventually Danzo escaped. Once free from the shadows, Danzo jumped away from the two Jounin, smeared the blood of his busted lip on his fingers, did 5 hand seals in rapid succession, smacked his bloody hand into the floor and screamed. Kuchius no Jutsu. A giant puff of white smoke appeared in the battlefield, hiding Danzo from view. Once the smoke cleared, the 3 Jounin were flabbergasted. In front of them a giant creature was staring at them with Danzo on top of its head. The titanic creature looked like a tapir, but its legs were stripped like the ones of the tigers. It was mostly black, but the markings around his eyes were white, and so was its trunk. The creature also had bandages wrapped around his head similar to the ones Danzo had, and a pair of menacing tusks sprouted from its mouth. Roar. The giant tapir roar intimidated the Jounin. Inoichi turned to Shikaku. Hey, what is the plan? Shikaku looked at Inoichi and then at the giant chimera, then to Inoichi again, and once again to the tapir before he spun and ran like hell. Damn it, Shikaku, wait for us. Chimza, let's go. To his surprise even the injured Chimza was already following the Jounin commander. The Yamanaka sighed and followed his team into the forest. For a minute or so the Ino Shikacho trio was able to escape the titanic tapir, but they couldn't hide because they would be easily found by Danzo's Sharingan, so they just kept running from the rushing summon. Baku, use your suction. The Warhawk ordered his beast. Danzo summoned opened his gigantic mouth and began inhaling. The suction it generated was so strong that it ripped the trees from its roots, and rocks were pulled out of the ground, like if they were feathers. Everyone, don't let go. The red-deeded man who was gripping the ground with his enlarged hands yelled to his teammates who were holding on to a tree to avoid being sucked in. The big man knew that it was only a matter of time for them to be sucked into the taper's mouth, so he decided to take a risk to ensure their safety. Shikaku, Inoichi, get ready. The two Jonin had a look of confusion on their faces, but it turned to one of panic when they saw that their friend had let go of the ground and was now being suctioned by the summon. The Akimichi saw how fast he was being sucked in, so he acted quickly. Here goes nothing. CHM Baika no Jutsu, super multi-size technique, Chimza's body began to expand while closing onto the taper. Danzo foresaw what was going to happen, but could do nothing to stop the imminent collision of the two titans. The earth shook when the giants crashed into each other and fell to the ground. Danzo was barely able to maintain his position on top of the taper's head and yelled to his summon. Stand up Baku, defeat this traitor. The taper obeyed and stood up at the same time as Chimza did. The two titans sized against each other, with Chimza being a little smaller than the chimera. But that didn't stop the giant man of charging his enemy while letting out a war cry that could be heard even in the tallest of the mountains. Shikaku, we got to do something. The blonde told his teammate. Even if Chimza did eat a couple of chakra pills, he won't last long against that monster and Danzo. I know, we will have to keep Danzo busy so he can't attack Chimza with those troublesome wind jutsu. While they were speaking, they were also jumping from tree to tree as fast as they could, wanting to support their friend as soon as possible. When they were close enough to the battle, they saw Chimza trying to dominate the taper with a headlock. Inoichi, this is our chance, let's climb up Chimza's leg. Inoichi nodded and ran alongside Shikaku until they reached the foot of their giant friend, then they focused their chakra in the soles of their feet and ran up their friend's leg. By the time they have reached the top of the mountain that was their teammate, the taper had escaped from the Akimichi's grip and struck him with his clawed paw. Chimza, are you okay? The black-haired man asked to one of the ears of the giant. Is that you, Shikaku? Yeah, I'm here with Inoichi. Listen, we need you to get as close as possible to that beast so the two of us can go for Danzo. Okay, but are you going to be alright? He still has two of his Sharingan without counting the one in his eye. The Narajanin laughed. You are always like that, my friend, you are fighting a giant taper and you worry about your friends rather than for yourself. Shikaku turned serious and showed him a scroll. In this scroll there are some really strong flares, at my signal I want you to unseal them and hold them over your head. Chimza understood the plan of his longtime friend, they have done something similar in previous missions. Look out, Chimza. The giant heard the voice of his friend and looked at their enemy to see him and his beast charging at them. Hold on to something, guys. The large man took a firm stance with his arms stretched in front of him, ready to stop the attacking taper. The beast tackled furiously at the giant, they skidded back several meters, crushing everything that was in the way. Finally they stopped and the Jounin used this time to jump on top of the taper and sprinted towards the back of the beast, where their enemy was. As soon as they reached each other, the battlers began to exchange blows. The tired Danzo found it difficult to fight two Jounin-level ninjas at the same time, but he was still able to hold his ground. It didn't take long for Danzo to be overwhelmed by the combined assault of the Jounin, so he did four-hand signs. Rat, snake, horse, dog. And called his technique. Fton. Shinka wind release. Vacuum wave. The elder took a deep breath and exhaled while spinning, creating a large blade of wind that surrounded his aged body. Inoichi and Shikaku were able to evade most part of the damage by jumping back, and then Inoichi threw a barrage of shuriken at Danzo, who saw them coming and used one of his jutsu to deflect the attack. Fton. Tatapa, wind release. Great breakthrough. The gust of wind stopped the shuriken, but blocked Danzo's view for a second, and that was all that the two Jounin needed. When Danzo looked at his enemies he only saw Inoichi. Where's Nara? Did he fell? The elder's question was answered when he felt three shuriken piercing his back. Danzo screamed in pain and spun to see Shikaku. When did he get there? Now is my chance, Inoichi thought at seeing Danzo distracted. Kaiten. Nkakik no jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique. Danzo, hearing what the blonde Jounin had just said, cursed. Damn it. Izanagi. The fireball seemed to impact and burn Danzo to ashes, but the two Jounin wouldn't get tricked by his jutsu again. They looked around searching for their enemy and finally they spot him over their heads in midair and doing hand signs. Fton. Shinkrenpa. Wind release. Vacuum serial waves. Screamed the elder and sent several wind blades downwards directed at the blonde and the black-haired males. The blades crashed down and the taper that was engaging Chimza in battle roared in pain before a hammer fist impacted its head. The angered beast swiped at the giant, but said giant blocked it and then grabbed its trunk and pulled the beast into a headlock. Meanwhile, Danzo was standing alone on the taper's back searching for his enemies. Although the Fton. Shinrenpa was one of his strongest jutsu, it should have at least left traces of their bodies, so he came to the conclusion that those troublesome jounin were still alive. Danzo blinked twice. Now I understand why Nara uses that phrase. Danzo muttered under his breath and continued searching for the Junin, unknown to him that both of them were under him and counting the seconds to attack him. How much is left for his technique to go off? A blond man spoke to his black-haired friend. 15 seconds are left of Izanagi, Chimza should act soon. The Yamanaka nodded with his ponytail hanging loosely, the two jounin waited some seconds more standing upside down on the underbelly of the tapir, imitating the bats, before they returned to meet Danzo in the back of the beast. The elder heard someone or something coming at him so he turned around and deflected a kunai aiming to his head. Danzo smirked. Those fools came for me, I've some seconds left for Izanagi, I will end this now. And with that in his mind he began to prepare one of his jutsu. Stop moving you overgrown tapir. Chimza shouted to the beast that was fighting to break free from his headlock. In an incredible demonstration of his Herculean strength, Chimza lifted the enormous beast until it was completely over his head, straight like an arrow. Let's see if you like this. With that said, Chimza jumped and buried the tapir's head into the ground when he fell in on his butt. The impact caused an earthquake, and the mighty beast released a howl of pain before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Inside the cloud of smoke, 3 figures were plummeting to the ground. 2 of them had black hair and the other one had blonde hair. Just when Danzo was about to release his wrath upon the two Junin, the ground that was his summon began to shake and rise. Soon they found themselves in a vertical position using chakra to avoid falling, but when the giants slammed the beast in the ground, they lost control of their chakra and ended up in a free fall towards the ground. Mza, do it now. Shikaku screamed while falling, and then both he and Inoichi pulled out their ninja string, tied it around a kunai, and threw it to the chest armor of their giant friend to stop their fall, while Danzo used a wind of stream he blew to soften the impact on the ground. The titanic Akimichi quickly collected some of his chakra into the scroll that was residing on his big palm, and the flares were unsealed, then he crushed them with his hand strong enough to just activate them and raised his hand up in the air. The exhausted Danzo quickly whipped his head up to see how the blinding light emanating from the sitting giant's hand illuminated the dark sky with a red glow. Are they calling for help? Why would they do that? I'm sure someone has already seen or heard the battle between Baku and the Akimichi. Though the confounded Danzo. Shikaku, who was now on the ground alongside Inoichi and Chimza, put his hands on the rat sign. Kajime no Jutsu, shadow imitation technique. Danzo scoffed at the sight in front of him. It is useless, Shikaku, there's no Lee. The elder stopped at mid-word, his eyes widened at seeing how the large shadow that the giant Akimichi produced was already enveloping him. Rabbit, boar, Ra. He tried to complete the hand signs for Izanagi, but before he could complete it, Shikaku's shadow had already traveled through Chimza's and reached him. Shikaku raised one hand and grinned when Danzo's body imitated him. Capture complete, he is all yours, Inoichi. Inoichi smiled and aimed at the captured warhawk. It is over, Danzo. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Mind-body switch technique. The blond man's body slumped forward as conscience left him. For a second the clearing filled with the sounds of war got as silent as a graveyard. That is, until Chimza spoke with his booming voice. Inoichi, are you there? Shikaku and Chimza both breathed a sigh of relief when Danzo replied. The boar, the deer and the butterfly played shogi together until they became hungry. Shikaku, that is the worst code you have ever come up with. The Redeed laughed as he returned to his normal size, while Shikaku just shrugged and cancelled his jutsu. It isn't that bad, let's go, we have a traitor to deliver to the Hokage. Spoke the black-haired jounin, both Chimza and Inoichi and Danzo's body nodded. Chimza picked up Inoichi's prone body and was about to leave with his teammates when a voice called out from the darkness. What is going on here? The figure appeared in front of the Junin, revealing to be an Anbu. Ah, Anbu-san, what took you so long? Chimza asked the Anbu garbed in a black cloak. Shikaku immediately knew something was amiss, but before he could express his concern he felt something sharp pressing against his throat. Damn it. Troublesome root. Don't move, ordered a voice behind Shikaku. The man with the spiky ponytail looked around and saw Chimza being immobilized by 3 root agents, and the exhausted Junin had no chance against 3 Anbu-level ninja, so he didn't struggle. Inoichi Yamanaka, release Danzo-sama at once or your friends are dead, the shinobi with the kunai at Shikaku's throat said. Inoichi and Danzo's body saw the root shinobi behind Shikaku, 3 more on top of Chimza, and 3 surrounding him. He sighed, his team was immobilized and tired, even if they were free, they wouldn't be able to fight against so many powerful shinobi. He knew that they were dead even if he released Danzo, but he had no choice in the matter. The Yamanaka broke his technique and his conscience returned to his own body. Danzo-sama, are you injured? One of the masked shinobi ran and helped his master up. About time you came here, when we return I will speak with all of you. The warhawk said while standing up. He then approached the immobilized blond man. I win, Inoichi-san. You will be killed and then you will be framed as traitors, but don't worry, I will take care of the Uzumaki boy and maybe will also train your daughter, she would make a great Kunoichi, if she doesn't becomes powerful, then at least she would be great for seduction missions. Inoichi was enraged by the words spoken by Danzo, he struggled as hard as he could against the shinobi that was holding him down, he wished to break free and rip his head off from his wrinkled body, but no matter how hard he struggled, the root on top of him wouldn't budge. The elder smirked. Root, it is time to go, kill the Danzo. The eyes of the warhawk narrowed after hearing a voice he knew very well. So the great Hokage-sama decided to come here in person. Danzo turned around and indeed saw the third Hokage, but now he was wearing his combat suit. His combat uniform consisted in a jumpsuit like the ones the Junin used, but instead of blue his was black, he also had grey shoulder armor, and his forehead protector covered a helmet similar to a samurai kabuto, the straps of his hit-8 were long and reached all the way down his feet. What is the meaning of this? Are members of Root attacking my ninja? The god of shinobi asked furiously. Danzo thought for a moment what should he do, attempting to talk his way out would be useless, the Hokage had already seen his root and he had his right arm and eye exposed. While he was pondering about his situation he heard the sound of someone falling to the ground, he turned his head to the right to see that the ninja that was holding Shikaku was lying on the floor, facing upwards with a kunai stuck in his mask. He also noticed that the ones who were holding Chimza down were now fighting against 4 Anbu. Root, combat positions. The warhawk ordered his ninja and they obeyed without protest. Then he escaped while his root engaged the 8 Anbu in combat. Come back here, Danzo, yelled Sarutobi, but he was stopped before he could follow him by no other than the head of the Nara clan. Shikaku explained everything he knew about Danzo's Sharingan and especially about Izanagi. He only has 2 Sharingan left. That means that he can cast Izanagi for about 60 seconds more. The Sandaime nodded his head. Alright, thank you for the help. Now look for a place where you and your teammates can rest and let the Anbu deal with this. The Hokage said before jumping in the same direction that Danzo went. The panting and worn-out Danzo was resting with his back against one of the big logs in the third training ground. The moon shone brightly up in the night sky, accompanied by the countless stars incrusted in there. The light coming from the heavenly bodies was reflected in the lake almost as clearly as a mirror. The warhawk stiffened and recompassed his posture to greet the incoming Hokage. You sure took your time coming here, didn't you? Why are you doing this, Danzo? You are hurting the village that you love so much. Everything I do it for the sake of the leaf. I am the only one who can bring the leaf's full potential. Naruto Uzumaki was a vital point in my plan of becoming Hokage, but now I will take the matter in my own hands. Don't be such a fool, you are exhausted and injured, you won't stand a chance against me. The Hokage spoke without any trace of arrogance in his voice. It is worth a shot. Fkton. Shink Tajoku. Wind release. Vacuum Great Sphere. Danzo inhaled a large amount of air and then expelled it in a large sphere made of wind. The Sandaime defended against the crushing sphere of wind with a jutsu of his own. Doten. Dorikeki Earth Release. Earth-style wall, Hiruzen spat out mud that instantly rose and hardened, creating a large wall of earth that protected him from the wind jutsu. Danzo concentrated chakra into his right eye expecting an attack coming from the Sarutobi when he showed himself, but to his surprise, he felt the earth below him shaking and a hand emerged from the ground. Doten. Shinjitsu no Jutsu. Earth Release. Double Suicide Decapitation Technique. Danzo barely evaded the hands by jumping back, but then he saw that Hiruzen was running towards him from his left. Danzo's Sharingan revealed to him that the Sarutobi coming at him was a shadow clone. He tried to connect it with his right arm, the Hokage's shadow clone evaded the punch skillfully and used a butterfly kick that sent Danzo into the air. The warhawk landed on the surface of the lake and saw that the original Sarutobi was preparing another of his jutsu. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. The Sandaime fired a single shuriken that soon became 1,000 at the tired Danzo. Ton. Datapa, Wind Release. Great breakthrough, the wind jutsu reflected the shuriken. Sarutobi continued his assault. Kaiten. Karikenden, Fire Release. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. The Hokage demonstrated why he was called the Professor as he masterfully manipulated the flames coming out of his mouth into a dragon. Danzo saw how the fiery dragon approached him, so he had no choice but to activate his forbidden jutsu. The fire dragon crashed against the surface of the lake, making some of the water evaporate by the heat the flames emanated. When the vapor dispersed, Danzo was nowhere to be seen. Heeding the warning of Shikaku, the aged Hokage knew that this had to be the work of the Jutsu Izanagi, so he concentrated on his senses to locate Danzo. Sarutobi heard a poof and turned to see that his shadow clone had been destroyed by Danzo, stabbing it with one of his wind-enhanced kunai. After dispelling the shadow clone, Danzo rushed to the Hokage. The Sandaime had no problem in parrying or evading the sluggish and weak slashes of the warhawk, he had already lost a lot of blood and used almost all of his chakra, the only thing that kept him on his feet was his pride. Danzo separated himself from the Hokage and fell to one of his knee and began coughing out blood. It is over, Danzo, 30 seconds have already passed. It is not over yet, Sarutobi. I'm still breathing. Just stop it, you can't beat me. The Hokage said just loud enough for him to hear him with his head lowered. I'm still alive, that means that I'm still a danger for Konoha, aren't I? Act like a Hokage for once and protect our village. The old Hokage raised his head and took out one of his kunai. Very well, let's finish this, old friend. Danzo smiled at hearing that the words spoken by the Hokage were full of conviction, and with his remaining strength he charged at Hiruzen, kunai in hand. The two ancient shinobi stabbed at each other. Danzo's kunai had already lost the infused wind chakra it had, and with only the physical power of an exhausted old man, the kunai barely drew out blood. In other hand, the kunai being held by the Hokage plunged deeply into the gut of his opponent. Danzo coughed out blood once again, he had lost. Since the moment that the Hokage appeared he knew he wouldn't win, but the normally bitter loser didn't feel angry or remorseful. The moribund elder leaned against the shoulder of his killer and spoke with hoarse voice. Hiruzen, remember the feeling of killing one of your friends, you are the Hokage, you must protect our village against everything that threatens it, after all the friends of the past could be your enemies in the future. You are no enemy of mine, you only had a different way of seeing things. You will be remembered as a man that loved the leaf over anything, even if your last actions were wrong, you still did what you think would be better for the village. Danzo laughed against his shoulder. You are still as soft as ever. My friend, remember this, now that I can't be the Hokage you will have keep the job. Don't let anyone step over you, do what you think it's good for the village. I entrust the leaf in your hands, Kami no Shinobi. And with that said Danzo closed his eyes, never to be opened again. You look so silly all bandaged up, Inoichi-sensei. A standing blonde boy laughed at a bedridden blonde next to him. How could you get so hurt in a bar fight? Asked Naruto while still laughing. The Hokage at his side also laughed, but he immediately got quiet when Inoichi sent him a murderous glare. After the fight with Danzo, the Hokage returned to the place where his Anbu battled against Danzo's route. To his delight, his ninja had just finished of dispatching the enemy. Afterwards the Anbu took Shikaku, Inoichi and Shimza to the hospital. The history revealed to the public was that Danzo Shimura died in battle against an unknown missing nin. The Hokage sent his Anbu to investigate if anyone had seen something similar to a giant man fighting against an enlarged tapir. Luckily, no one saw Shimza fighting against Baku, although some people did hear the sounds of battle. To explain the injuries that the Ino Shikacho trio sustained, he simply said that they got drunk off their asses and involved themselves in a bar brawl. No one really asked any questions because something like that happened before. Needless to say, the trio wasn't pleased by the excuse that the Hokage came up with, but since his fight with Danzo, no one dared to contradict him. It was like if he had an aura of power around him, just like the one he had when the god of shinobi was in his prime. As soon as Naruto heard that his sensei was in the hospital, he jumped out of his bed and ran through the hallways looking for his room, even if he didn't know what number his room was. Young Naruto didn't find the room, but in the way he bumped with the Hokage, so he tagged along while they searched for his sensei's room. With the help of Sandaime, it didn't take long for them to find the room. When they entered the room, the ever-curious Naruto began to ask questions and believed everything that his sensei or the Hokage told him. During the time the blonde boy spent inside the room, he became acquaintances with Shimza Akimichi and Shikaku Nara. The Chunin seemed to like the blonde boy as they answered his questions or talked with him about anything in particular. The lazy Shikaku even played a round of shogi with him. Inoichi turned his head to the left to see that his disciple was now listening eagerly to the large man as he shared one of the many adventures that the Ino Shikacho had been in. It was totally worth it, Daddy. Inoichi was brought out of his thoughts when someone tackled him into a hug. The sand blonde Junin smiled at seeing his daughter. Hello, Inoheim. I missed you too, but would you mind letting me go, you are hurting my ribs. Said the Yamanaka, cringing from the pain caused by his daughter's crushing hug. Ino backed away while muttering a small sorry. Suddenly Inoichi felt a pair of lips pecking his own. Hi husband, how are you feeling? While her parents were kissing and cuddling, Ino marched towards the small whiskered boy who was sitting on the Akimichi's bed. Naruto gulped at seeing the platinum blonde approach him. He expected for her to still be mad at him, but to his surprise, the girl didn't hit or berate him. Naruto-kun, I'm sorry for the way I treated you yesterday. Daddy told me that you only wanted to save me from some bad people and you got hurt because of it. Ino said nervously. The dumbfounded Naruto just smiled and scratched the back of his neck. Don't worry about it, Ino-chan, it was also my fault, I should have told you or something instead of just pushing you. That's alright. Say, do you want go to eat ramen and maybe play later, after all I still have to pay you for the ramen that you treated me. Naruto gave her one of his famous grins before replying to her offer. Sure, Ino-chan, let's go. Then what are we waiting for? Exclaimed Ino, and she grabbed Naruto's hand before pulling him out of the room. Ino, wait. "Don't worry Inoichi-san, I will have one of my most trusted Anbu watch over them," said the Hokage to calm the preoccupied father down. Shikaku, who just a minute ago was taking a nap, grinned. "Well Inoichi, it looks that now you have a new disciple and a future son-in-law," said the black-haired male, triggering a boisterous laugh from his red-haired teammate. "Oh my, Ino-chan is already going on her first date, they grow up so quickly," Mayu said with a hand on her cheek. Inoichi just scoffed. "Please, Naruto and Ino together, that will never happen, right?" The male Yamanaka took notice that everyone in the room was watching him with a look that said, "Are you stupid?" On their faces, even the nurse that had just entered the room. Inoichi laughed nervously. "Right." No one answered. Chapter 4 soon to be Genin. Beep beep beep. By ringing loudly, an object fulfilled its purpose as its cries stirred the individual hiding underneath purple silk sheets. Not taking kindly being woken up, a hand shot out of the bedding. At first the extremity palpated around the small table, unable to find the object making all that noise, but finally the hand found it and with a not-so-gently slam, turned the alarm off. Silence reigned once again in the bedroom, now that the evil alarm clock had been defeated, but the damage was done, the young girl under the bedding wouldn't find sleep anymore. Getting out of her hideout, Ino Yamanaka sat up and let the soft sheet slid down her body as she stretched her arms over her head, her camisole that matched the color of her sheets, raised high enough to reveal the creamy skin of her flat stomach. It was early. It was still dark outside, except for some stray sun rays coming from the horizon that somehow managed to evade all the buildings and made the darkness on the streets recede. Thoughts of getting back into bed tempted her, let her more lazy self indulge herself once in a while, after all what possible harm could sleep a couple more hours do? Sighing Ino knew otherwise. Beauty had a price and she was more than willing to pay for it. Letting out one last yawn before getting up, Ino went directly to her vanity table. Seeing the lack of sunlight, she decided against opening the curtains, instead she opted to press the switch collocated conveniently next to her mirror that would turn on the lights of her room. Ino blinked a couple of times to let her eyes grow accustomed to the light. Afterwards, she took a moment to look at herself in the mirror, then she took her brush and began the arduous task of combing her hair out of any knot that could have been formed while she was resting. Once she made sure her hair was smooth and free of knots, she began the second phase of her daily ritual. Take a bath. After gathering enough clothes out of her walk-in closet, she made her way towards her bathroom, where she promptly took off her camisole, pajama pants and underwear before taking a shower. Finally, after easily 30 minutes, Ino exited the bathroom fully dressed in her usual attire that consisted in a purple sleeveless top with high collar that reached above her bandaged abdomen, a purple skirt cut at the sides that revealed her also bandaged thighs, a pair of white and purple elbow warmers, and in her waist, being used as a belt, was her recently earned Hitai 8. Now she was almost done, the only thing remaining to do was fixing her hair, so once again Ino sat on the chair of her vanity table and began running her hands and fingers through the still wet blonde locks. The Yamanaka took a hold on her favorite brush and combed her hair with utmost dedication. She tried different styles, pigtails, curls, a long single braid, even buns, but in the end, she decided to tie her hair up in the same ponytail, with bangs covering the right side of her face, that she always wore, ever since she let her hair grow past her shoulders. Sparing one last approving smile at her reflection, she stood up and left her bedroom. Ino walked down the staircase, guided by the delicious fragrance of freshly made breakfast. She soon entered the kitchen, and to her surprise, the only person in there besides her was her mother. "Morning, Mom," said the young Yamanaka. Mei Yamanaka stopped cutting vegetables and turned around to greet her daughter. "Good morning Ino-chan, did you sleep well?" Ino smiled and took her seat at the table. "Yes I did Mom." "Say, where's Naruto-kun and Dad?" The older woman stirred the boiling contents of some pots at the stove and answered. "Your dad left earlier, he said he was needed at the intelligence division." Ino nodded, knowing perfectly how busy her father could be sometimes. "And Naru-chan, well, I think the sleepyhead is still snoring in his bed," Mayu said with a giggle. The Yamanaka heiress stood up abruptly. "What? From all the days he could have overslept it had to be this one." Now, calm down Ino-chan," Mayu said soothingly. "Your father probably trained him to exhaustion again." Ino sighed. "Do you want me to go wake him up?" "Yes, please do so, or else you both are going to be late." Doing as her mother told her to, Ino went upstairs and walked past her bedroom, her parents' bedroom, and reached Naruto's. Knocking a couple of times on his door, Ino soon came with the conclusion that if he was really sleeping, then mere knocking wouldn't wake him up, so she shrugged and entered his room. As messy as ever, thought Ino as she walked closer to the bed, evading discarded shirts, pants, scrolls and other things that lay randomly on the floor. Once she was close enough to the sleeping blonde, she called out to him. "Up and shine Naruto-kun, it's morning already." Her voice didn't reach him by the way he kept snoring, his mouth open wide and a little bit of drool escaping his lips. Seeing as her first plan didn't work out as planned, she was about to resort to more extreme ways when an idea popped up in her mind. Reaching to the window next to the blonde's bed, she opened the orange curtains in one swift shift and let the sunlight do the dirty work for her. Ino thought she won when the sun hit Naruto's face, but to her disappointment the Uzumaki just mumbled something in his sleep and turned to his left to escape the light's assault. The Yamanaka felt her patience run thin, so she went to the side Naruto was facing, grabbed his shoulders and began shaking him. "Naruto baka, wake up already. If you don't we will be late." The rough wake-up call seemed to be working when Naruto began to stir, but then suddenly the sleeping blonde caught her hands and then pulled her towards him. Ino yelped loudly when she felt herself lose her balance and then fell on top of her fellow blonde. Time seemed to freeze for the platinum blonde, one moment she was trying to wake the Uzumaki up and now she was on top of him, his arms tightly secured around her slim waist. Her body tensed and her face flushed beef red when she felt Naruto's warm breath tickling her ear while the boy slept unaware of their intimate position. She tried to get up but froze when her hands traced the firm chest of the boy beneath her, only now realizing he wasn't wearing a shirt. Trying once more to separate herself from the blonde boy, Ino found out that his hands wouldn't budge from their position even when she started to struggle fiercely against his hold. Her efforts to escape resulted in her being pressed closer to Naruto as he moved one of his hand to her back and pushed her down. She felt her breasts being pressed against his naked torso, his hands holding her like if she was his lifeline and his essence filling her nostrils. It had a slight tint of sweat in it, probably because of the same action of sleeping, but it still carried the Naruto-ish aroma that made her feel lightheaded. "Maybe we can stay like this for some more. We have time and I still feel a little sleepy," thought Ino as she cuddled her way to rest her forehead on the boy's shoulder. Ino's lips curved into a smile when he felt the heaving of Naruto's chest, his deep breaths were proof of how soundly the boy was sleeping. "Gosh, daddy must have worked you to the ground again." The position they were in triggered a flow of memories in the girl's mind. Flashback: 3 blondes were in an ample training ground surrounded by trees, 2 of them were next to each other, while the last and only female in the group was watched them while sitting comfortably on top of a rock. "Alright Naruto, today's session is almost over," said a tall blonde to a kid currently doubled in exhaustion, his hands on his knees and taking deep breaths to regain the lost oxygen. The tall blonde was no other than Inoichi Yamanaka, his arms crossed and a serious expression on his face while talking to his disciple. "To finish up, I want you to do push-ups non-stop until I return from shopping for tonight's dinner." The sand blonde man looked at his sitting daughter. "Ino-chan, could you come here for a moment?" The girl did as his father told her. She pushed herself off the rock and ran towards her dad, excited to be able to help. "Ino-chan here will make sure that you do as I commanded you to, and if Ino-chan tells me that you stop then I'll make you run 20 laps more around the training ground, understood?" The 8-year-old boy gulped but nodded nonetheless. "Good. Now Inoheim I will be away for a while, so you are in charge meanwhile." With that said Inoichi leaned forward and kissed the top of his daughter's head and walked away. Now completely alone the two stared at each other until the girl broke the silence. "What are you waiting for Naruto-kun?" Feeling slightly intimidated by the smirk on Ino's face, he got down to the ground and began the push-ups. The Yamanaka observed keenly as the boy did the exercise without many problems and soon grew bored of it. Naruto was around his 30th push-up when he felt some extra weight on his back that almost made his arms falter. "Ino-chan, what are you doing?" asked a blonde boy as his arms kept trembling under the weight. Sitting on top of the boy's back with her legs crossed, she answered. "My clothes will get dirty if I sit on the ground." The boy replied struggling a little. "Can't you find other place to sit that it isn't on me? Don't tell me this is too much for you." Daddy would be disappointed to see his disciple struggling to lift little Almi. Naruto knew that Ino was toying with his pride, but he wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him defeated, so gathering all the strength he could, he lowered himself until his nose almost touched the ground and then lifted himself back up. "Fine, sit tight and watch how the future Hokage does things, Dadabeo." The Uzumaki continued with the push-ups for 10 minutes and the platinum blonde had to say that she was impressed. Not a single time he faltered, his will to succeed gave him strength to do anything he focused his mind into. He never complains, no matter how hard daddy trains him, he never gives up. Ino was brought out of her thoughts when the boy she was thinking about spoke. "Kami, Ino you are heavy." The girl's brow twitched. There are things that should never be said to any girl and Ino was about to teach Naruto that. Really now? The Uzumaki never saw the narrowed eyes or the mischievous grin on Ino's lips. The Yamanaka waited until Naruto was almost touching the ground again to begin her assault of tickles on the defenseless boy. "Ino, cut it out," Naruto demanded while trying to contain his laughter, but Ino didn't stop, in fact she sped up her attack until it became too much for the boy, his arms flaked and the weight drove him to the ground. The whiskered boy rolled around on the ground laughing uncontrollably while trying to escape from his attacker. Once he managed to regain his breath, Naruto rolled them around so he could gain the upper hand and retaliated by ticking Ino's belly. "Hey, stop it." shrieked Ino while fending off the hands tickling her weak points. Did you think that only because you are a girl I wouldn't attack back? Ino was laughing so hard she thought she would pee herself, but the young girl acted quickly and countered by rubbing the whisker marks on the boy's face. The two kids played around on the ground for a while, unaware of the figure watching them from afar, his hands holding a couple of plastic bags. The man couldn't help but smile at the way the two kids interacted with each other. Naruto seemed really happy to be able to play with someone after being shunned for so long. Okay kids, break it off, it's time to go home. The two blondes stopped turning around, but they were still on the ground, Ino on top of Naruto, the two breathing heavily. Hey. I said break it off. Yelled Inoichi to the kids who seemed to be ignoring him. End of flashback. The Yamanaka didn't know or care how fast or slow the time passed by, for her it only existed the now, as she let herself enjoy the embrace she was in just how she did many years ago. My, Ino-chan, you're so bold. At the sound of a very familiar voice, Ino turned her head dangerously fast to see, as she feared, her mother. I came upstairs to see what was taking you so long. If I remember correctly, I told you to wake him up, not to sleep with him. Mayu said with a dreamy expression as she leaned against the doorframe. TTT, this isn't what it looks like. Ino managed to stutter while trying to sit up. Finally she battled her way out of the embarrassing position, but during her squirms she didn't notice where she placed her right hand until she felt something hard and rather large under her palm. Slightly intrigued at what could possibly be what was resting under her hand, she unconsciously groped it. It was until she heard a moan coming from the still sleeping Naruto that she deduced the identity of the object she was touching. Ino's face turned redder than the cherry tomatoes she liked so much when she confirmed that indeed, her hand was touching Naruto's groin. Foreseeing problems, Mayu quickly covered her ears while she walked back to the kitchen. She was halfway down the stairs when she heard the unmistakable voice of her only daughter. You pervert, wake up already. Ino-chan, wait up. Naruto whined to the girl walking several steps ahead of him. Said girl ignored his whines and continued her way. The boy slumped at the cold shoulder he was given by his female friend. Just like every other day, a pair of blonded could be seen walking down the streets of Konoha. Normally they would be walking side by side, but each time the girl walked ahead of the boy, it could only mean one thing: the boy did something stupid to anger the girl. It wasn't my fault, Adebayo. Thought the boy. Imagine the surprise he got when he woke up from a very pleasant dream, only to get the hell slapped out of him by a very angry blonde, a very angry and beautiful blonde on top of him. He quickly understood why the girl was so angry about. Come on. I couldn't help it, it was a natural occurrence of my body, and I never told her to place her hand on my hem. The blonde boy was wearing a simple purple t-shirt, black cargo shorts that reached until his shins, black shinobi sandals on his feet, and a Konoha hit on his forehead. But man, did her hand felt go. Naruto's thought process was cut when he felt someone pat his back. Twisting his head slightly to see his assailant, the Uzumaki saw no others than two good friends of him. Morning, Naruto. Spoke a chubby boy through a mouthful of chips. Naruto gave his friend a smile and returned the greeting. Good morning, Shinjai. Shinjai Akimichi, heir of the Akimichi clan, was a brown-haired boy the same age as Naruto. He had whirl marks on his cheeks, and his outfit consisted in brown shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green jacket over a white shirt with a kanji for food on it, ring earrings, and his legs and forearms were wrapped in bandages. His forehead protector was also worn on a bandana around his head cut at the sides in a way that allowed his hair to spike out of it. Morning, said a black-haired boy after taking one unnecessarily long yawn. Morning to you too, Shikamaru. Said Naruto. Shikamaru Naru, heir of the Nara clan, was a boy with black hair tied up in a spiky ponytail. Besides a face dull of laziness, he also wore a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, adorned on both the sleeves and the back with a circle with a line through it, his blue forehead protector worn around his left arm, brown pants, and blue sandals. Hey Naruto, what's up with that woman? Shikamaru asked while walking next to the blonde. Jai used the time that took opening another bag of chips to join the conversation. She seems pretty mad. What did you do this time, Naruto? Naruto for his part had his eyebrow twitching. Why does everyone assumes I did something stupid every time Ino is mad? Sighing, the young Nara said. Listen Naruto, believe me when I said that is better for you to just accept that it was your fault and leave it at that. How can you said that if you don't even know the facts? Asked the Uzumaki. Troublesome, fine, what happened? Naruto slowed down and motioned for his two friends to come closer. Once Jai and Shikamaru were in a distance where Naruto was sure Ino wouldn't hear them spoke. Guys, what happened was that when I woke up, the two boys waited patiently for Naruto to continue, but there wasn't any signal that the blonde would resume his explication. Then the blonde began to sweat and shiver. It's impossible, she shouldn't be able to hear us. Is this the legendary women's intuition? The Malayers followed Naruto's gaze to find the reason of his weird behavior. There, in a pair of emeralds were graved promises of pain and eternal suffering, as the blonde girl glared intensive at his blonde counterpart. Naruto gulped. Guys, better we leave it like this. The two boys nodded in understanding. In the classroom flooded with excitement, young Genin waited expectantly for the announcement that would decide who they will work with for the next years. Boys and girls alike talked with each other, hoping to calm down the nerves that grew stronger with each passing minute. Some of the fresh shinobi contributed to the ambient by speaking aloud or proclaiming loudly how great as a ninja they would be. Ihuo. Nothing is going to stop us, Akamaru. Howled a boy noisily, causing the small white dog poking his head curiously out of the boy's grey furred jacket to give a bark in agreement. Hiba, do you have to be so loud so early on the morning? Groaned Shikamaru as he lifted his head out of his folded arms resting on the table. The noisy boy smirked, showing his large canines, one of the many animalistic traits that denounced him as a member of the Inuzuka clan, as well as being of the most visible ones alongside his slitted pupils and the red markings that resembled fangs marred on his cheeks. Come on, don't be such a spoilsport. Today we will meet our teams, show some excitement you bum. Said the boy named Kiba to the black-haired boy sitting on his left. The Nara didn't even respond, instead he just leaned right back into his folded arms and closed his eyes. Kiba, seeing as Shikamaru wasn't going to talk anymore, decided to socialize with the other two boys sitting at the same large desk as him. Said boys were Naruto and Shinji. After talking for a while about noting in particular, Kiba noticed something weird. Hey Naruto, how come you're sitting with us instead of with your girlfriend? Teased the Inuzuka. Shut it Kiba, she is not my girlfriend. Growled out the whiskered boy. The Inuzuka smirked wider this time. Calm down man, all I'm saying is that it's nice to see you out of your leash once in a while. Oh, now you are talking about leashes dog boy. How about I get you a flea collar, we wouldn't want you to stick your fleas to Akamaru now, would we? Asked Naruto with a smirk of his own. Why you? Kiba was about to leap at Naruto when he heard the guffaws coming from the boy sitting next to the Uzumaki. Shinji, who had been watching the conversation between the two bickering, laughed at their antics, but stopped when he saw them, looking at him with narrowed eyes. Sorry guys, it's just that is always the same with you two. Said the Akamichi while trying to keep in his laugh. Naruto and Kiba shrugged, both of them now calmer than before. Then Kiba sent a not-so-subtle glance towards the other side of the room to see the Yamanaka heiress's stern expression. Anyway, did you do something stupid to make her mad again? The feral boy asked. A tick mark formed in Naruto's forehead, but even so remained calm. Why everyone does assumes that is my fault. Now Shikamaru joined the conversation. It is your fault, you are too dense for your own good. Before the sapphire-eyed boy could ask about what he meant, an insanely loud yell was heard that silenced the whole classroom. Shut up already. When the ringing in his ears disappeared, Naruto looked at the front of the classroom to see unsurprisingly, his academy teacher, Iruka Yamino. The teacher, presented in the proper uniform of a Konoha Chunin, spoke when everybody took a seat and remained quiet. Good morning everyone. Beginning today all of you are real ninjas, but you are still merely rookie genin. The hard part has just started. Suddenly a girl with bright pink hair and a red dress raised her hand. Excuse me, sensei. Yes, what is it Sakura? Replied the scared man with a smile. Why isn't Mizuki-sensei here? The only pink-haired girl in the class asked. The Chunin sighed and then spoke with a small frown on his face. Mizuki was discovered to be a traitor yesterday when he tried to escape the village with the forbidden scroll of seals. Most of the class let out surprised gasps when they heard the words of their instructor. Soon enough murmurs were echoing in the classroom, ranging from murmurs of disbelief to murmurs of anger and betrayal. However, the details of what happened is confidential, so I won't be able to answer any questions you may have about what happened. The low voices continued for a while until they disappeared completely. Seeing the grim expressions on the faces of his students, the Chunin tried to lighten up the situation. Relax guys, this is a daily occurrence in the lives of shinobi, but with the correct training you will all be able to deal with it, I'm sure of it. A wave of confidence washed over the young ninjas when they saw the smile on their sensei's face. Now you will be soon assigned duties by the village. So today we will be creating the 3-man teams, and each team will have a Chunin sensei. You will follow that sensei's instruction as you complete the assigned duties. But that said, Iruka pulled out a chart and started to read the members of each team one by one until Team 7 will be Haruno Sakura, Naruto Uzumaki. Sakura slammed her forehead on the desk, the blonde sitting next to her glared at her in a mix of jealousy and anger. And Uchiha Sasuke. Your sensei will be Hada Kakashi. As soon as those words left the instructor's mouth, two things happened. First, Sakura's mood did a complete turnaround as she cheered loudly, and second, Naruto frowned. Ino watched with pity at the Uzumaki until the girl next to her decided to make herself known. Take that Ino pig. Sasuke-kun is as good as mine. The Yamanaka looked at her clearly annoyed. Forehead, how many that do I have to tell you that I don't like Sasuke? Sakura smirked smugly. Yeah right, then tell me why do you wear the same arm warmers as him? What are you talking about? He was the one who copied me. Ino nearly screamed. Give it up piggy, you won't be able to fool me. stated the convinced Haruno. Ino rubbed her temple in frustration. Why did I sit next to this girl? Next, teammate Inyazuka Kiba, Haika Hinata and Aburam Shino. Your sensei will be Iki Kurenai. Kiba looked at the shy girl with dark blue hair fidgeting in the corner and then at the quiet boy with brown hair, a high-collar light green jacket and sunglasses. Team 9 is still on circulation, Team 10 Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Chinjai. Your sense is going to be Sarutobi Asuma. The three members of the new Ino Shikacho nodded at each other. Your new sensei shouldn't take long to get here, so please wait patiently, said the teacher to the class. True to Iruka's word, soon enough the Jimnin began to flock to the room, taking their teams with them when they left. As the minutes passed by, the once congregated classroom began to feel the shortage of people as there were more and more empty seats and the room grew quiet. Team 10, with me. A tall bearded man dressed in the standard Konoha Jimnin uniform said as he placed a cigarette on his lips. Doing as the man instructed, Ino, Shikamaru and Chinjai walked down the steps to join the man in the front of the room. Shikamaru and Chinjai followed their sensei out of the room, but Ino lagged behind to send one last worried glance at the boy that sat by himself since his friends left. Naruto saw the platinum blonde looking at him, so he grinned widely and gave her a thumbs up. Yamanaka smiled and left the room running to catch up with her team. Now with Team 10 gone, the only people remaining were Team 7 and Iruka. 10 minutes later, Iruka left with the excuse of having to go grade exams. Left to their own devices, Sakura began pestering Sasuke about going on a date, but after 10 minutes of being rejected by the cold boy, she gave up and sat in an empty desk. Minutes passed and there weren't signs of their sensei. Naruto sighed and decided to at least have a decent relationship with his new teammates, so he stood up and went over to Sasuke. Sasuke, seeing as we are going to be in the same team for the next years, let's work hard together, said Naruto as he stretched his arm to shake hands with the raven-haired boy. The Uchiha for his part didn't even move from the position he was in, his elbows on the table, and behind his interlaced fingers was his face. The raven-haired boy snorted. Just don't get in my way. Naruto retracted his hand. You are ahead, you know that. The two boys stared at each other with hate shining off their eyes. Naruto Baka, leave Sasuke alone, screeched Sakura while storming off to slug the blonde in the head, but Naruto saw the punch coming a mile away and easily sidestepped the attack. Sakura's body staggered forward when all the strength she infused in her fist missed her target and eventually lost her balance and fell on the floor. The Uzumaki scoffed. Sakura, you never learn, do you? Then he turned to the Uchiha. And you Sasuke, grow up already. Then the blonde left his two teammates and sat far away from them. For the next hour an uncomfortable silence washed over the almost empty room. While waiting, Naruto thought about playing a prank on their sensei for making them wait for so long, but in the end he decided against it. It would make Inoichi-sensei look bad. Finally, after pushing their patience to the limits, Team 7 was rewarded when a mop of spiky silver hair peeked through the doorway. Team 7, meet me on the rooftop. And with that, the man left. Okay, let's start with some introduction, said a man as he sat leisurely on the roof's guardrail. Naruto looked at the man in detail. The spiky silver hair, the mask covering his nose and mouth, the forehead protector covering his left eye, the standard Konoha shinobi outfit, and a lazy attitude that could rival Shikamaru's. Yep, this man is indeed the copy ninja, Hada Kakashi. What do you want to know? Asked Sakura as she sat next to Sasuke, her legs pulled to her chest. The tall Jimnin shrugged. How about your likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, hobbies? Stuff like that. Once more, the only girl in the group queried. Sensei, could you show us how to do it first? It isn't that hard, but alright. The Jimnin took some seconds to think about what to say. Well, my name is Kakashi Haddock. I have no desire to tell you about my likes and dislikes. Dreams for the future. And I have a lot of hobbies. Sakura deadpanned. All we learned was his name. The blonde smirked. That's not true. We also learned that he has a lot of hobbies. Kakashi crossed his arms. Okay Blondie, seeing as you want to talk that much, how about you go next? Sure, I don't have a problem with it, Haddock-san. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. My likes are the Yamanaka clan, the Hokage and my friends. My dislikes are arrogant jerk. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Traitors and people who try to hurt my precious people. My dream for the future is to become strong enough to be able to protect the people I care about, and my hobbies train and read, I guess. Kakashi seemed mildly surprised at the blonde's introduction. Not bad. Inoichi did a good job raising him. Next. The Jimnin said. Sasuke, sitting in the same position he was in before, his face behind his interlaced fingers, introduced himself. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are tons of things I dislike, but I don't really like anything. And I don't want to use the word dream, but I have an ambition, the resurrection of my clan, and to kill a certain man. In the silence that the introduction left, several thoughts wandered in the minds of the remaining members of Team 7. Who'll fought the infatuated Kunoichi? Different ideas, the blonde mused in his head. He will never change, he is hell-bent on taking revenge against the traitor Uchiha Dadabayo. I thought so, Kakashi mentally confirmed. Okay, and lastly, the girl. The pink-haired girl bashfully presented herself. I'm Haruno Sakura, the thing I like is, well, the person I like is. She glanced at Sasuke and blushed. Should I say my dream for the future? Again, she glanced at the Uchiha, blushed, but this time also squealed. And your dislikes? This time, the girl answered without hesitation. Ino Pig and Naruto Baka. Is this some kind of joke? The masked man thought as he scratched his cheek. Meanwhile, Naruto turned to the girl. Watch it, Sakura, I don't care if you insult me, but I won't allow you to insult anyone of the Yamanaka clan, especially Ino-chan. What did you say, Baka? Just before Sakura could attack, Kakashi decided to stop the conflict. Stop it, you two. Tomorrow we will start our duties. The genin seemed interesting. What kind of duties, sensei? The gal inquired. First we are going to do something with only the four of us, and that is survival training. The Haruno seemed confused. Why is our duty training? We did enough training at the academy. The blonde boy answered. It won't be training, it will be more like a test that anything and only the best are going to be considered as genin, isn't that right? Kakashi nodded. You are well informed, in fact, of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be chosen as genin. The rest will go back to the academy. This test has a failure rate of over 66%. Naruto closed his eyes, Sakura's face turned grim, and Sasuke sweated. Tomorrow you will be graded in the training field. Bring your shinobi tools, and skip breakfast, you will throw up. It was delicious like always, Mayu-san. Naruto said as he dried one glass plate carefully. The woman besides the boy rinsed another plate before handing it over. Thank you, Naru-chan, but it isn't necessary for you to help me with the dishes. Naruto shrugged. It's the least I can do, after all you prepared a feast for us tonight again. Mayu laughed. You deserve it. Both you and Ino-chan ended up in the top 5 of the academy, you were second, and Ino was 4th behind the Aburam boy, that is something to be proud of. I guess, but I should have tried harder to beat the Uchiha, pouted the Uzumaki. The platinum blonde flicked some drops of water at the boy. Naru-chan, sulking isn't allowed in this house, we are all proud of you. The woman dried her hands and then motioned to Naruto to follow her. Come on, let's see what Ino-chan and my husband are up to. The blonde boy followed Mayu out of the kitchen and into the dining room, where Ino and her dad were sitting at the medium-sized mahogany table. Mayu took her place next to Inoichi and across Ino, while Naruto sat next to the young girl facing his sensei. Naruto, Ino has just told me about her team and their sensei, tell me about yours. Inoichi said calmly. The Uzumaki straightened his posture and spoke. Hi, sensei. Team 7 is conformed of Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke and I. The genin assigned to the team is Hada Kakashi. In our meeting we introduced ourselves, and Haddock-san told us about a test we are supposed to undergo before being fully accepted as genin. The details about the test are in this paper. The Uzumaki pulled out a folded paper from his pocket and passed it to his sensei. The blonde man unfolded the paper and read it. I see you are expected at the 3rd training ground by 5 a.m. Inoichi set the paper on the table. I'm not going to lie to you, Naruto. I'm not pleased with Kakashi being your team leader. The Uzumaki cocked his head. Why is that? I thought he was one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha. He is one of the strongest and famous ninja of the leaf, but I don't think he is capable of teaching properly. Your team is not the first team he has been assigned to, he has tested several teams before and none of them passed his trial. Explained Inoichi. Ino looked at her mother like asking for confirmation. Mayu nodded to her unspoken question. So what? The genin raised his eyebrows at Naruto's answer. I don't care if his test is hard. I'm positive that I can pass, after all I was trained by the best sensei in all Konoha. Naruto said, his words carrying tons of conviction. Dadabayo. Everyone at the table smiled, the bright words of the boy lifted the mood in the room. So, Inoichi-sensei, got any advice for tomorrow? I'm afraid I can't tell you much. Kakashi likes to keep his secrets under wraps, but I can give you a tip, look underneath the underneath. The night deepened, the moon and the stars reached their peak. The lights of the homes of Konoha were for the most part turned off as their residents rested and recharged energies for a new day, but for a young blonde boy sleep just wouldn't come to him. Eventually Naruto grew bored of gazing at his ceiling and got out of his bed. Silently, Naruto left his bedroom, walked down the stairs and into the kitchen. He didn't bother in turning the lights on, his eyes had long since accustomed to the darkness, besides, the moonlight entering from the window above the sink illuminated well enough. He opened the fridge and rummaged through its contents until he found what he was looking for. The sapphire-eyed boy opened the plastic lid of the milk carton before guzzling the liquid inside down his throat. Use a glass. You're not the only one in the house that drinks milk, you know. Scolded a voice behind the boy. Turning around, Naruto asked. Hey Ino-chan, can't sleep. Of course I can't, if I could I wouldn't be here. Ino proclaimed as she took a glass out of a wooden cupboard and sat on the kitchen counter. "Pass me the milk," the Yamanaka ordered. The blonde boy approached the sitting girl, leaned against the counter where she was, and poured milk on her glass. Ino murmured a small thanks and took a sip from her glass. Naruto used this time to take a better look at the girl. She was wearing her purple pajamas with white dots on both the shirt and the pants. Her blonde hair cascaded down her back and some bangs covered the right side of her face. But what really made him blush was that her pajama top had the upper buttons unbuttoned and exposed a moderate amount of skin. Naruto shook his head out of any dirty thought before focusing his attention back to the Yamanaka. Ino lowered her glass and licked any remains of milk on her lips. "Are you nervous for tomorrow's test?" she asked. The Uzumaki passed a hand through his hair. "Maybe a little, but I'm also excited." "Excited?" Ino looked at Naruto in confusion. "Yeah, after we pass this last obstacle we will be finally full-fledged genin, what can be more exciting than that?" remarked the boy with a big grin. The platinum blonde leaned back a little while her legs swung playfully from left to right, her toes occasionally brushed against the soft fabric of Naruto's pants. "You sound awfully confident in that, what if we don't pass?" "We will pass. We have worked very hard for this and nothing's going to stop us from becoming ninjas," he said. For a moment the pair of blondes ceased talking and just enjoyed the song of the crickets and each other company. "I'm sorry about today, I don't know what came over me to ignore you the way I did." The girl apologized. Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't sweat it, maybe it was my fault for oversleeping." "You're right, it was your fault after all." Naruto's sweat dropped at Ino's words, but the girl only giggled. "But I forgive you this time. Just make sure it doesn't happen again, okay mister?" said Ino while poking Naruto's chest. Hi. I got it, Haim-sama," Naruto said mockingly. The platinum blonde pushed herself off the counter. "Good boy. Now servant, walk me to my room." Naruto chuckled. "Anything for you, Ino Haim." Ino blushed, but it went unnoticed in the dark. But that said, Naruto led the blonde girl out of the kitchen and guided her to her bedroom, where he left her to go to his own room, but not before exchanging good nights. Soon after Naruto and Ino climbed on their respective beds, they quickly fell asleep. In the end it wasn't the nerves that caused their lack of sleep, but rather the bitter feeling of not talking to each other through the day. What if Naruto trained in Fox Mountain? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.